The room shimmered with elegance, the grand ballroom alive with murmurs of excitement, clinking champagne glasses, and the quiet hum of anticipation. Emily Harrington, the woman of the hour, stood in the spotlight at the front of the stage, a radiant smile fixed on her face. This was her moment, her biggest career-defining night, the product launch that would solidify her as an unstoppable force in the business world. The lights dimmed slightly as Emily raised her champagne glass. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly across the room. "Tonight marks not just the launch of a product but the culmination of vision, leadership, and trust." In the far corner of the room, Amanda Carter stood in the shadows. Dressed in black, unnoticed yet deliberate, she watched Emily with an icy calm. To the rest of the world, Amanda was just another guest. Polite, unassuming, invisible. But Amanda wasn't here to celebrate. She was here to watch Emily's empire crumble. Amanda's phone buzzed quietly in her hand. She glanced down at the screen. A single message from Marcus. "It's done. The files are live." Her lips curled into the faintest smile. She slipped her phone back into her coat pocket and turned her attention to the stage. Emily, ever the performer, continued her speech. "This success is a result of months of hard work, sleepless nights, and the commitment of my incredible team. I couldn't be prouder of what we've accomplished." Amanda's heart hardened at the words. Months of hard work. Emily had no idea what hard work was. Amanda remembered the countless hours she had poured into this project, the dedication she had shown to her team, only to have Emily rip it all away. But tonight, Emily's theft would be laid bare. The massive screen behind Emily flickered to life, drawing the attention of the crowd. Emily turned slightly, expecting to see the sleek visuals of her product pitch. Instead, something else appeared. A series of emails, unmistakably hers, blown up for everyone to see. The ballroom went silent. Amanda watched with satisfaction as confusion spread across Emily's face. The first email appeared in bold black text. Subject: Sabotage Plan. To Ryan Harrington. "I'll leak the gala files tonight. Amanda won't recover from this. She'll lose everything and will finally take control." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily's smile faltered. What is this?" she stammered, glancing desperately toward her team. Another email replaced the first. Subject: Private funds transfer. Details: Unauthorized accounts, financial discrepancies traced back to Emily Harrington. The whispers grew louder now, a ripple of chaos spreading through the ballroom. Emily's carefully curated image was unraveling before her very eyes. "Cut the screen," Emily snapped, turning to the event coordinator. "Shut this off now." No one moved. Amanda stepped out of the shadows then, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor as she approached the center of the room. Heads turned as the spotlight seemed to find her naturally, illuminating her cool, collected presence. Emily's eyes widened as Amanda met her gaze. "You," she breathed, realization dawning. Amanda tilted her head slightly, a mockery of innocence. "Is there a problem, Emily?" Her voice was soft, yet every word cut like a knife. "You did this," Emily spat, her voice trembling as the crowd murmured louder. "You're trying to ruin me." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "No, Emily. I didn't do this. You did this to yourself." The screen behind them continued flashing evidence. Emails, financial documents, photos of manipulated reports, all damning proof of Emily's betrayal and sabotage. Investors in the crowd were already pulling out their phones, journalists scribbled furiously into their notepads, and Emily's supporters shifted uncomfortably, backing away from her as though she carried a plague. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amanda said, addressing the room, "it seems there's been a misunderstanding. Trust is everything in business, and tonight, you've all seen what happens when that trust is broken." Her words were like the final nail in Emily's coffin. Emily staggered back, her composure shattered. "This isn't over," she screamed at Amanda, her voice shrill, echoing off the high ceilings. "You'll regret this." Amanda paused at the edge of the crowd, turning back slightly. Her expression was calm, her words laced with quiet finality. "No, Emily. The only thing I regret is trusting you." She walked away, leaving Emily behind, humiliated, exposed, and utterly broken. The woman who thought she had won had just lost everything, and Amanda had made sure of it. As Amanda exited the ballroom, the chaos behind her became muffled, almost distant. The satisfaction of justice settled over her like a calm wave. Emily had underestimated her, and now she was paying the price. "You took everything from me, Emily," Amanda thought as she stepped into the cool night air. "But tonight I took it all back." Before everything fell apart, Amanda's life had been picture perfect, or so she thought. The warm morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. Amanda sat at her desk, surrounded by clean, minimalist decor that reflected her organized and ambitious personality. The city skyline spread out before her, the view a daily reminder of how far she had come. "Miss Carter, you have a meeting with the board in 15 minutes, her assistant Lily said, poking her head through the door. Amanda smiled and nodded. "Thanks, Lily. I'll be there." She leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath. Her company was thriving. The upcoming product launch was poised to be groundbreaking, a culmination of her years of hard work and sacrifice. She had poured everything she had into this company. Her time, her passion, her heart. And she wasn't doing it alone. Her husband Ryan had always been her steady support, and Emily. Well, Emily was like family. Amanda had brought her best friend into the company years ago, trusting her completely. Amanda's phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan. "Ryan. Dinner tonight. Your favorite place. I'll pick you up at 7. Amanda's smile widened. Ryan always knew when she needed a break. "Perfect," she replied, setting the phone down. That afternoon, Emily burst into Amanda's office, her usual confident energy filling the room. Dressed in a sharp suit and holding a coffee cup, Emily flashed a grin as she set the drink on Amanda's desk. "Thought you might need this before your board meeting," she said. Amanda chuckled, accepting the coffee. "You're a lifesaver. I swear you know my schedule better than I do." Emily smirked and perched herself on the edge of Amanda's desk. "That's what I'm here for. You're killing it, Amanda. The board is going to eat this presentation up. And this product launch. It's going to be legendary." Amanda beamed, appreciating her friend's unwavering support. "We couldn't have done this without you, Em. You've been my right hand through it all." Emily's smile faltered for the briefest moment before returning. "We're a team, Amanda. Always." Amanda didn't catch the flicker of something dark in Emily's expression. Envy, perhaps, or calculation. At the time, it was easy to believe that Emily's loyalty was unshakable. After all, they had been through so much together. "Let's knock this out of the park," Amanda said, rising from her chair and grabbing her presentation folder. "You've got this," Emily said with a smile, but her voice held a strange weight that Amanda didn't notice. That evening, Ryan picked Amanda up as planned. The familiar, comforting hum of jazz music played softly in the car as they drove to the upscale restaurant Amanda loved. "You've been working too hard again," Ryan said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "We need to celebrate how far you've come." Amanda smiled, the tension of the day melting away. I know. I'm just so close to the finish line. Once this launch happens, we'll finally take that vacation we keep talking about." Ryan laughed lightly, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, we'll figure it out." The restaurant was warm and romantic, candlelight flickering as Amanda and Ryan shared a bottle of wine. They talked about their plans for the future, dreams of traveling to Italy, maybe starting a family. Ryan listened attentively, nodding and agreeing, though Amanda didn't notice how distracted he seemed. "Everything feels like it's falling into place," Amanda said, her voice soft. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Ryan." Ryan looked up from his glass, a shadow flickering across his expression. He opened his mouth as if to say something but stopped. "You don't have to worry about that. I'm always here for you." To Amanda, the evening had been perfect. To Ryan, it had been something else entirely. The next morning, Amanda walked into the office with her usual sense of purpose, but something felt slightly off. Emily wasn't at her desk, which was unusual for her. She was always the first one in, coffee already waiting for Amanda by the time she arrived. "Have you seen Emily?" Amanda asked Lily, her assistant. Lily glanced up. "Oh, I think she said something about an early meeting. She didn't give me details." Amanda shrugged it off, not thinking much of it. Emily had her own responsibilities, after all. But throughout the day, Amanda couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Emily had always been her confidant, her anchor. They talked about everything: work, life, relationships. But lately, Amanda realized, Emily had been more distant. Their conversations were shorter, her smiles more rehearsed. And Ryan had been working late more often, brushing off Amanda's questions with vague excuses about projects he couldn't talk about. Amanda paused, staring at her phone screen that evening. She had texted Ryan hours ago. "What time will you be home?" There was still no reply. Amanda pushed the unease to the back of her mind. "I'm just overthinking it," she told herself. "Everything's fine." She didn't know it yet, but the cracks were already forming. The perfect life Amanda believed in was about to shatter, and the people she trusted most were holding the hammer. Amanda was never one to miss details. It was part of what made her a great leader. Her ability to see connections where others didn't and to pick up on the smallest changes in her surroundings. Yet, in hindsight, she would wonder how she missed the signs that her perfect world was falling apart. It all started with the little things. One evening, Amanda sat in her office late into the night, finishing up revisions for the product launch presentation. Outside, the city lights blinked like distant stars, and the office building was silent save for the faint hum of the ventilation system. She glanced at her phone, the clock reading 10:17 p.m. "Ryan's late," she murmured, frowning slightly. She dialed his number, pressing the phone to her ear. The call rang 4 times before it went to voicemail. "Hey, it's Ryan. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Amanda sighed and ended the call. It wasn't the first time this had happened lately. Ryan had been busy more often than usual, but Amanda had brushed it off as part of his job. He worked in strategy consulting. Long hours were just part of the deal. She grabbed her things, leaving the office and heading home to an empty house. As she walked through the door, she noticed something strange. Ryan's suit jacket wasn't hanging by the door where it usually was. She paused, running her fingers along the hanger. Did he even come home today? She wondered. Shaking off the thought, she tried to convince herself there was nothing to worry about. "It's just work," she told herself. "He'll explain." But in the quiet house, the seed of doubt began to take root. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the office early, coffee in hand. Emily's desk was empty again. Amanda stopped, frowning. This was the second time in a week that Emily was late, a stark contrast to the woman who was normally the first one in and the last one out. Amanda stepped into her office and started her day, but she couldn't shake the growing unease. Around noon, Emily finally appeared, looking polished and confident as always. "Morning," Amanda said, watching Emily carefully as she set her things down. Emily flashed a bright smile. "Good morning. Sorry, traffic was awful today." "Traffic?" Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Where were you coming from? You usually beat the rush." Emily paused for a split second, just enough for Amanda to notice, before replying smoothly. "Oh, I had to stop by to meet a vendor early this morning. Nothing important." Amanda nodded slowly, though the explanation sat uneasily in her mind. "Next time let Lily know." "I was worried." "Of course," Emily replied cheerfully, but Amanda noticed the slight tightness in her smile. As the day went on, Amanda began to notice more. Emily was distracted, answering texts more often, disappearing for longer than usual lunch breaks, and dodging casual questions with vague answers. Amanda tried to ignore it, but something felt off. That evening, Amanda stayed late again, finalizing edits on the product pitch. She was skimming through her inbox when she noticed something strange. An email sent to her team titled, "Product Notes. Final Revision." It was marked as coming from Emily. Curious, Amanda clicked on it. As she read through the message, her brow furrowed. The content was almost word for word something Amanda had written and shared with Emily weeks ago, but there was one glaring difference. Emily had signed it as if it were her own. Amanda stared at the screen. Why didn't she credit me? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to confront Emily. But something stopped her. She saved the email to a folder titled Suspicious and leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. It wasn't just the email. It was everything. Ryan's late nights, Emily's vague excuses, the offhand comments that didn't add up. Alone, each detail seemed small, but together, they started forming a pattern Amanda couldn't ignore. That weekend, Amanda and Ryan had planned to have dinner together. She busied herself setting the table while waiting for him to come home. As she pulled out a bottle of wine, something on the kitchen counter caught her eye. It was a small gold necklace. Delicate, expensive, with a pendant Amanda had never seen before. She picked it up, her pulse quickening. "Ryan," she called out, hearing him enter through the front door. "Hey," he said casually, hanging up his coat. "What's that?" "I was going to ask you the same thing," Amanda replied, holding up the necklace. "Where did this come from?" Ryan's expression froze for half a second before he shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it's yours." Amanda narrowed her eyes. "It's not mine." Ryan walked to the fridge, feigning indifference. "Must have been left here by someone. Maybe Emily stopped by last week, remember?" That evening, Ryan picked Amanda up as planned. The familiar, comforting hum of jazz music played softly in the car as they drove to the upscale restaurant Amanda loved. "You've been working too hard again," Ryan said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "We need to celebrate how far you've come." Amanda smiled, the tension of the day melting away. I know. I'm just so close to the finish line. Once this launch happens, we'll finally take that vacation we keep talking about." Ryan laughed lightly, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, we'll figure it out." The restaurant was warm and romantic, candlelight flickering as Amanda and Ryan shared a bottle of wine. They talked about their plans for the future, dreams of traveling to Italy, maybe starting a family. Ryan listened attentively, nodding and agreeing, though Amanda didn't notice how distracted he seemed. "Everything feels like it's falling into place," Amanda said, her voice soft. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Ryan." Ryan looked up from his glass, a shadow flickering across his expression. He opened his mouth as if to say something but stopped. "You don't have to worry about that. I'm always here for you." To Amanda, the evening had been perfect. To Ryan, it had been something else entirely. The next morning, Amanda walked into the office with her usual sense of purpose, but something felt slightly off. Emily wasn't at her desk, which was unusual for her. She was always the first one in, coffee already waiting for Amanda by the time she arrived. "Have you seen Emily?" Amanda asked Lily, her assistant. Lily glanced up. "Oh, I think she said something about an early meeting. She didn't give me details." Amanda shrugged it off, not thinking much of it. Emily had her own responsibilities, after all. But throughout the day, Amanda couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Emily had always been her confidant, her anchor. They talked about everything: work, life, relationships. But lately, Amanda realized, Emily had been more distant. Their conversations were shorter, her smiles more rehearsed. And Ryan had been working late more often, brushing off Amanda's questions with vague excuses about projects he couldn't talk about. Amanda paused, staring at her phone screen that evening. She had texted Ryan hours ago. "What time will you be home?" There was still no reply. Amanda pushed the unease to the back of her mind. "I'm just overthinking it," she told herself. "Everything's fine." She didn't know it yet, but the cracks were already forming. The perfect life Amanda believed in was about to shatter, and the people she trusted most were holding the hammer. Amanda was never one to miss details. It was part of what made her a great leader. Her ability to see connections where others didn't and to pick up on the smallest changes in her surroundings. Yet, in hindsight, she would wonder how she missed the signs that her perfect world was falling apart. It all started with the little things. One evening, Amanda sat in her office late into the night, finishing up revisions for the product launch presentation. Outside, the city lights blinked like distant stars, and the office building was silent save for the faint hum of the ventilation system. She glanced at her phone, the clock reading 10:17 p.m. "Ryan's late," she murmured, frowning slightly. She dialed his number, pressing the phone to her ear. The call rang 4 times before it went to voicemail. "Hey, it's Ryan. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Amanda sighed and ended the call. It wasn't the first time this had happened lately. Ryan had been busy more often than usual, but Amanda had brushed it off as part of his job. He worked in strategy consulting. Long hours were just part of the deal. She grabbed her things, leaving the office and heading home to an empty house. As she walked through the door, she noticed something strange. Ryan's suit jacket wasn't hanging by the door where it usually was. She paused, running her fingers along the hanger. Did he even come home today? She wondered. Shaking off the thought, she tried to convince herself there was nothing to worry about. "It's just work," she told herself. "He'll explain." But in the quiet house, the seed of doubt began to take root. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the office early, coffee in hand. Emily's desk was empty again. Amanda stopped, frowning. This was the second time in a week that Emily was late, a stark contrast to the woman who was normally the first one in and the last one out. Amanda stepped into her office and started her day, but she couldn't shake the growing unease. Around noon, Emily finally appeared, looking polished and confident as always. "Morning," Amanda said, watching Emily carefully as she set her things down. Emily flashed a bright smile. "Good morning. Sorry, traffic was awful today." "Traffic?" Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Where were you coming from? You usually beat the rush." Emily paused for a split second, just enough for Amanda to notice, before replying smoothly. "Oh, I had to stop by to meet a vendor early this morning. Nothing important." Amanda nodded slowly, though the explanation sat uneasily in her mind. "Next time let Lily know. I was worried." "Of course," Emily replied cheerfully, but Amanda noticed the slight tightness in her smile. As the day went on, Amanda began to notice more. Emily was distracted, answering texts more often, disappearing for longer than usual lunch breaks, and dodging casual questions with vague answers. Amanda tried to ignore it, but something felt off. That evening, Amanda stayed late again, finalizing edits on the product pitch. She was skimming through her inbox when she noticed something strange. An email sent to her team titled, "Product Notes. Final Revision." It was marked as coming from Emily. Curious, Amanda clicked on it. As she read through the message, her brow furrowed. The content was almost word for word something Amanda had written and shared with Emily weeks ago, but there was one glaring difference. Emily had signed it as if it were her own. Amanda stared at the screen. Why didn't she credit me? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to confront Emily. But something stopped her. She saved the email to a folder titled Suspicious and leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. It wasn't just the email. It was everything. Ryan's late nights, Emily's vague excuses, the offhand comments that didn't add up. Alone, each detail seemed small, but together, they started forming a pattern Amanda couldn't ignore. That weekend, Amanda and Ryan had planned to have dinner together. She busied herself setting the table while waiting for him to come home. As she pulled out a bottle of wine, something on the kitchen counter caught her eye. It was a small gold necklace. Delicate, expensive, with a pendant Amanda had never seen before. She picked it up, her pulse quickening. "Ryan," she called out, hearing him enter through the front door. "Hey," he said casually, hanging up his coat. "What's that?" "I was going to ask you the same thing," Amanda replied, holding up the necklace. "Where did this come from?" Ryan's expression froze for half a second before he shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it's yours." Amanda narrowed her eyes. "It's not mine." Ryan walked to the fridge, feigning indifference. "Must have been left here by someone. Maybe Emily stopped by last week, remember? The words hit Amanda like a slap. Emily. She tried to keep her expression calm, but her mind was spiraling. Right, she murmured, placing the necklace back on the counter. Ryan didn't see the look in her eyes as she turned away, but Amanda felt it. Her first real suspicion. That night, Amanda lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Ryan slept soundly beside her. Every moment replayed in her mind. Emily's excuses, Ryan's strange behavior, the email, the necklace. The cracks were forming, widening with every passing day. Amanda didn't have proof yet, but her gut screamed that something was wrong. And if she had learned anything in business, it was this. Trust your instincts. Amanda turned onto her side, her jaw tight. If there's something going on, she whispered to herself, I'll find out. And she would. What Amanda didn't know was that the betrayal she suspected ran far deeper than she could imagine. The first time Amanda saw the truth, it was in a place she never expected. Hidden in plain sight. Days passed since the mysterious necklace appeared in her kitchen. Ryan's late nights continued, his explanations growing thinner, and Emily's presence at the office became increasingly suspicious. Amanda's instinct told her something was very wrong, but she needed more than suspicion. She needed proof. That morning, as Amanda sat at her desk sipping her coffee, Marcus knocked lightly on the door before stepping inside. You look like you haven't slept, he said, setting a fresh coffee cup on her desk. Amanda looked up, forcing a smile. Rough week. Thanks, Marcus. He hesitated, lingering at the door. Anything I can help with? Amanda thought about brushing him off, but something inside her shifted. Marcus was loyal, dependable, and perhaps exactly the ally she needed. Actually, Amanda said softly, leaning forward, I might need a favor. Amanda handed Marcus her laptop, pulling up the email Emily had sent to the team earlier in the week, the one that mirrored her own notes. Something about this feels off, Amanda explained. I shared this document with Emily weeks ago, but the language here is almost word for word mine, and there's no credit. Can you look into it? Marcus frowned, skimming the email. You think she's taking credit for your work? I don't know, Amanda admitted. But it's not just this. Something isn't right, Marcus. Emily's been acting strange. And Ryan, she stopped herself short, not ready to voice her full suspicions yet. Marcus nodded, his expression understanding. Leave this with me. I'll dig into the email trail and see if anything pops up. Amanda exhaled, feeling a mix of relief and dread. She wasn't the kind of person to spy on her colleagues or her husband, but this wasn't paranoia. Something real was happening, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. Thank you, Marcus, she said softly. I need to know. He nodded once. I'll be discreet. Later that day, Amanda found herself staring blankly at her computer screen. Her focus completely fractured. She opened her company calendar to review her team schedules for the week and, almost absent-mindedly, scrolled through the shared calendar view. Her eyes caught something strange. Emily and Ryan both had overlapping off-site meetings scheduled for the same days, several times over the past month. The descriptions were vague, marked simply as client proposal review or vendor meeting. Amanda leaned back in her chair, her pulse quickening. It wasn't just the coincidence. It was the pattern. The late nights, the necklace, Emily's absences, and now, these overlapping calendar entries. Her instincts sharpened. No one's that synchronized, she muttered under her breath. Amanda grabbed her coat, slipping her phone into her bag. Lily, she called to her assistant as she walked past. I'm stepping out for a bit. Hold my calls. Of course, Ms. Carter. Amanda wasn't sure what she was looking for, but her gut told her to act. She drove across town to a quiet upscale cafe where Ryan had once taken her for a special date. Small, private, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. She parked across the street and sat in her car, scanning the patrons through the large glass windows. At first she saw nothing unusual. Just businessmen on laptops, couples sharing coffee, and friends chatting casually. But then she saw them. Ryan and Emily. They sat in a booth toward the back of the cafe. Ryan leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table, while Emily spoke animatedly, her expression smug and triumphant. Amanda couldn't hear them, but she didn't need to. Ryan's focused gaze and Emily's knowing smile told her everything. Amanda's stomach dropped, and her hands trembled on the steering wheel. There it is, she thought bitterly. Proof. For a moment she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The betrayal that she had tried to deny, tried to push away, was right there in front of her. Her husband, her best friend. Together. The dam broke. Amanda exhaled sharply, her face hardening as the tears that threatened her eyes vanished. So this is how it is, she whispered to herself, her voice trembling with quiet rage. Amanda stayed just long enough to see them leave, Ryan opening the door for Emily, Emily laughing lightly as they walked down the sidewalk like they had no care in the world. Her world. By the time Amanda returned to her office, the anger had burned away the hurt, replacing it with something colder, something sharper. She closed the door behind her and sank into her chair, staring at the city skyline outside her window. They thought they had won. They thought Amanda Carter was blind, foolish, or too trusting to notice their betrayal. But they were wrong. Amanda's phone buzzed, snapping her from her thoughts. It was Marcus. "I have something," Marcus said quietly. "You were right about Emily. There's an entire folder of shared files and emails connecting her to unauthorized leaks. Some of them were accessed at strange hours. And from a device registered to Ryan." Amanda's grip tightened on the phone. "Send me everything you have," she said, her voice steady, calm. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked carefully. Amanda's expression was cold as steel. "I'm fine. I just have some planning to do." As Amanda ended the call, she leaned back in her chair, a single thought echoing in her mind. They think they've won, but they have no idea who they're dealing with. And so it began. Amanda stared at her laptop screen, the digital evidence laid out before her like shards of broken glass. Each email, calendar entry, and file shared between Emily and Ryan confirmed the truth she had dreaded. Her best friend. Her husband. Both of them entwined in lies, weaving a betrayal so deep it left her breathless. The sting of disbelief had long passed, replaced by cold, calculating rage. The kind of anger that sharpened your mind instead of clouding it. Amanda knew now there was no going back. She clicked through Marcus's file again. Emails where Ryan casually leaked Amanda's confidential work to Emily under the guise of helping out. Late-night messages between the two, dripping with flirtation but peppered with strategy to tear Amanda down. Files from Amanda's private presentations, forwarded from Ryan's email to Emily's account, titled for the plan. Amanda's grip on the mouse tightened. They had planned this together. She pushed the laptop away, her pulse pounding in her ears. Betrayal wasn't abstract anymore. It wasn't paranoia. It was real, ugly, tangible, and sitting right in front of her. She stood abruptly, walking to the window of her office and pressing her hand against the glass. The skyline stretched before her, glittering with promise and power. It was her city, her empire, her life. And they thought they could take it from her. "Not a chance," she whispered, her voice shaking with quiet determination. Amanda didn't go home that evening. Not immediately. Instead, she found herself at a small bar near the edge of downtown, the kind of place she hadn't set foot in for years. It was quiet, dimly lit, and full of people drowning their own troubles in heavy glasses. She ordered a whiskey neat. It wasn't her usual drink, but tonight she didn't care. As the warmth of the liquor burned down her throat, she let herself feel it. The loss, the heartbreak, the devastation of realizing that two of the most important people in her life had shattered her trust. Images of her marriage flashed before her eyes. Ryan holding her hand on their wedding day, the vacations they took, the quiet nights spent talking about the future. Lies, her mind hissed. All of it was a lie. And Emily, the woman Amanda had considered her sister. She remembered late nights spent in the office together, brainstorming, laughing over Chinese takeout. Emily had been the one she turned to when things felt too heavy. "How long had she been smiling to my face while stabbing me in the back?" Amanda wondered bitterly. She set her glass down harder than intended, earning a glance from the bartender. She ignored it, staring instead at the liquid swirling inside. The grief hurt, but beneath it was something else, resolve. Amanda didn't want to be the woman people pitied. She wouldn't let Emily or Ryan win. If they wanted her world, they were going to pay for every inch of it they tried to steal. As Amanda pushed through the doors of her quiet home, she was greeted by darkness. Ryan was in the living room, sprawled on the couch, beer in hand. The television flickered with muted images of a football game he wasn't watching. "You're home late," Ryan said, not looking at her. His voice held none of the guilt Amanda would have expected, only the laziness of a man who thought he was untouchable. Amanda dropped her bag by the door, her voice even. "And you're early. That's new." Ryan looked up sharply, his brow furrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" Amanda met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no softness in her expression. "Nothing," she replied, walking into the kitchen and pouring herself a glass of water. "You've just been so busy lately. I wasn't expecting to see you here." Ryan stood and followed her, his curiosity tinged with defensiveness. "Amanda, what's going on?" "Nothing," she said, turning to face him with a calm smile. "Why? Do you have something you want to tell me?" Ryan froze for just a second, long enough for Amanda to notice. It was all she needed. "I'm going to bed," she said quietly, brushing past him and leaving him standing there in the kitchen. Amanda's heart hammered in her chest, but her face gave nothing away. Ryan was crumbling under the weight of his guilt. Good, she thought. Let him sweat. That night, Amanda sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the framed photo of her and Ryan on their last vacation. She picked it up slowly, studying their smiles, forced now that she looked at them with clear eyes. She set the frame back down and exhaled. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming her power. Amanda reached for her notebook, the one she used to plan her biggest strategies at work. She opened to a fresh page and began to write. Step 1. Identify Emily's weaknesses, professional and personal. Step 2. Use Ryan's guilt against him. Step 3. Gather allies. Marcus can help. Others may follow. Step 4. Strike when they least expect it. She closed the notebook, her decision made. If Emily and Ryan wanted war, Amanda would give them one. The old Amanda, the one who trusted too easily, who believed in love and friendship without question, was gone. In her place stood a woman sharpened by betrayal, ready to tear down anyone who thought they could take what was hers. Amanda lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling as a single, chilling thought echoed in her mind. You thought you could destroy me, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. Amanda woke up the next morning with a clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. The pain of betrayal was still there, like a dull ache, but it no longer consumed her. Instead, it fueled her, sharpened her focus like a blade. She wasn't going to fall apart. She wasn't going to cry or beg. She was going to win. Amanda sat at her desk with her notebook open, her pen poised as she wrote down the first line of her plan in bold letters. Destroy them piece by piece. The woman staring back at her from the reflection of her desk's glass surface looked different, harder, stronger. She no longer recognized the naive wife or trusting friend who had been so easily betrayed. That woman was gone. She started to write. Amanda knew Emily better than anyone. She had shared everything with her, work strategies, secrets, and dreams. It was ironic how the same information Emily had used to betray Amanda would now be the weapon Amanda wielded against her. Emily was ambitious, obsessively so. Her entire life revolved around two things: her career and the image she had carefully crafted. Emily had fought hard to position herself as a rising star in the company, a self-made woman with no flaws. Amanda smirked. What happens when perfection cracks? Emily's weaknesses were clear. 1. Her career. Emily had cut corners, manipulated numbers, and forged alliances with outside competitors. Amanda had suspected this long ago, and now she had Marcus's help to confirm it. 2. Her relationships. Emily's arrogance had already started to alienate her colleagues. Amanda knew exactly which strings to pull to turn those fractures into full-blown divides. 3. Her pride. Public humiliation would break Emily in ways she couldn't recover from. Amanda would make sure of it. Amanda grabbed her phone and dialed Marcus. "Marcus," she said, her voice steady. "I need you to compile everything we have on Emily. Her deals, her emails, anything questionable. I want it packaged neatly and ready to leak when the time is right." "You got it," Marcus replied without hesitation. "Anything else?" "Not yet," Amanda said. "But I'll let you know." She ended the call, her mind already racing with possibilities. Amanda didn't need Ryan to know what she was planning. Not yet. For now, his guilt would work in her favor. It was clear that Ryan was already unraveling under the weight of his betrayal. He avoided Amanda's gaze, stammered through conversations, and stayed out of the house more than usual. But let him squirm. Amanda decided to play the role of the loving, unsuspecting wife for a little longer. If Ryan thought she didn't know about his affair, he would be easier to manipulate. That evening she made dinner, something she hadn't done in weeks. She set the table carefully, lit a candle, and poured 2 glasses of wine. When Ryan walked through the door, his eyes widened slightly at the sight. "You made dinner?" he asked, his voice cautious. Amanda smiled warmly, though the gesture felt hollow. "I thought we could spend some time together. Things have been tense lately." Ryan hesitated before nodding. That sounds good." As they sat down to eat, Amanda watched him carefully. Ryan fidgeted with his fork, unable to meet her gaze. "How's work?" she asked casually. "Busy," Ryan replied quickly. "The usual. Late meetings again." Amanda pressed, her tone light and curious. Ryan froze for half a second before shrugging. "You know how it is." Amanda's smile didn't waver. "Course. You work so hard, Ryan. I don't know what I'd do without you." The words twisted like venom on her tongue, but they had the desired effect. Ryan looked even more uncomfortable, his guilt bubbling just below the surface. Good, Amanda thought. Keep squirming. Amanda needed people she could trust, people who would help her dismantle Emily and Ryan's facade piece by piece. Marcus was already her most valuable ally. Loyal, discreet, and excellent at uncovering the skeletons people thought they had buried. The next day, Amanda called Marcus to her office. He walked in with a thick folder, dropping it onto her desk. "This is everything we've got so far," Marcus said, sitting down. "Emily's been playing dirty for a while, leaking company information, manipulating project bids, even taking credit for other people's work." Amanda flipped through the folder, her satisfaction growing with every page. "And Ryan?" Marcus hesitated. "Nothing concrete yet, but it's clear he's involved. His name comes up in a few of Emily's leaked communications. If you want me to keep digging, I can." Amanda nodded. "Do it." "And Marcus?" "Yeah. I need you to keep this between us," Amanda said, meeting his gaze. "No one else can know what we're doing until it's time." Marcus nodded firmly. "You have my word." Amanda leaned back in her chair, staring at the folder on her desk. It was only the beginning, but already the pieces were starting to come together. Emily and Ryan had built their betrayal on lies and arrogance. Amanda would use the truth to tear it all apart. That night, Amanda stood in front of her bathroom mirror, studying her reflection. She looked composed, calm even. But inside the storm was building. They thought she was blind. They thought she would crumble. But Amanda Carter wasn't weak. She wasn't naive anymore. "They'll never see it coming," she whispered to herself. With that, she turned off the light and went to bed, already planning her next move. Amanda woke early the next morning, the first light of dawn slipping through the curtains. Sleep had been fleeting, her mind consumed with the blueprint of her revenge. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but Amanda knew she couldn't rush. If there was one thing she'd learned in business, it was this: precision is everything. Today, the seeds of Emily's destruction would be planted. Small, subtle moves that would seem harmless on the surface but would fracture Emily's carefully curated world piece by piece. Amanda arrived at the office earlier than usual. The quiet halls were calming, the hum of fluorescent lights the only sound as she sat at her desk with her plan laid out in front of her. Her first move was simple: erode Emily's influence within the team. The opportunity presented itself in a morning strategy meeting. The room buzzed with energy as key team members settled in. Emily swept in last, her usual confident air on full display, and took a seat opposite Amanda. "Good morning, everyone," Emily began, smiling brightly. "Before we dive in, I'd like to highlight a few areas we've improved on thanks to our updated strategies." Amanda remained quiet, letting Emily speak. She watched carefully as Emily began listing off ideas. Amanda's ideas, ones she had shared months ago in private meetings. Emily spoke as if they were her own, her arrogance making Amanda's blood simmer. "Those are excellent points, Emily," Amanda said finally, her tone calm but loud enough for the room to hear. "It's interesting. I recall brainstorming some of those ideas with you during our one-on-one sessions last quarter." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Emily, who blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "Oh, of course," she stammered. "We collaborated on many of these strategies. That's what a great team does, right?" Amanda smiled faintly. "Exactly. Credit where it's due." Amanda didn't press further. The damage was done. Seeds of doubt had been planted among the team. Subtle though it was, Amanda knew her comment had undermined Emily's authority in front of the group. Emily's confidence faltered for the briefest moment, a crack Amanda wouldn't let heal. That afternoon, Amanda met Marcus in a quiet corner of a nearby cafe. He handed her a flash drive across the table. "This has everything we talked about," Marcus said quietly. "The emails, the financial discrepancies, and proof that Emily's been leaking sensitive company data." Amanda nodded, slipping the flash drive into her bag. "Perfect. I need this shared anonymously with the internal audit team and a few key board members." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're starting early." Amanda's lips curved into a small, cold smile. "I'm building momentum. Emily won't know where the attack is coming from until it's too late." "Got it," Marcus replied. "I'll make sure the leak looks like it came from a concerned employee. By the time Emily catches on, it'll be out of her control." Amanda sat back, taking a sip of her coffee. "Good. Let's keep the pressure building." By the time Amanda returned home that evening, the next phase of her plan had already begun. Ryan was sitting at the dining table, his laptop open in front of him. His brows furrowed in concentration as Amanda set her bag down. "You're working late," she said casually, walking over to him. Ryan glanced up, startled. Just trying to catch up." Amanda leaned in slightly, her voice soft. "You've seemed distracted lately. Everything okay?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Course. Why wouldn't it be?" Amanda tilted her head, feigning concern. "I don't know. It just feels like you've been distant." She placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You know you can talk to me, right?" Ryan's expression wavered, guilt flickering across his face. "I'm fine, Amanda." "Really?" Amanda stepped back, her smile practiced and patient. "If you say so." She turned away, hiding the satisfaction that spread through her. She could feel Ryan slipping, his guilt growing like a shadow that he couldn't escape. He was starting to unravel. Soon he wouldn't be able to keep up the lie. The next morning, the first ripple of Amanda's plan hit Emily. An internal memo circulated quietly among the company's leadership team. Notice: audit team has received a whistleblower tip regarding potential data leaks and irregularities within recent project reports. Preliminary reviews have been initiated. Amanda watched from her office as Emily read the email on her phone, her face going pale. Emily glanced around the room, her movements jerky, her confidence visibly shaken. Amanda smiled to herself. Later that day, Emily cornered Amanda in the hallway, her voice low but sharp. Did you hear about this audit nonsense? Someone's trying to stir up trouble. Amanda raised an eyebrow. An audit? That's serious. Emily scowled. It's nothing. Just someone trying to make waves. Probably jealous of our success. Amanda nodded thoughtfully. Or maybe there's something to find. Emily froze, her eyes narrowing. What are you suggesting? Amanda met her gaze, calm and unwavering. Nothing, Emily. I just know that the truth has a way of coming out, whether we want it to or not. Emily said nothing, but her expression darkened as Amanda walked away, leaving her standing alone. That night, Amanda sat in her living room with a glass of wine, staring into the flickering flames of the fireplace. The first steps had been taken. Emily's confidence was cracking, and Ryan's guilt was eating away at him. It was only the beginning. Amanda tilted her glass slightly, watching the wine swirl. They won't see it coming, she thought. And when they fall, it'll be by their own hands. She had no doubt that Emily and Ryan thought they were still in control, but Amanda had already turned the tide. The game had begun, and Amanda intended to win. Amanda arrived at the office with purpose the following morning. Everything was moving in the right direction, but she couldn't allow herself to slow down. Not yet. She knew Emily was smart. The moment Emily suspected someone was behind her unraveling, she would fight back. Amanda needed to stay 3 steps ahead. She entered her office and powered on her laptop, her inbox filling with emails, one of which stood out. Subject: Audit Notice, Confidential Updates. Message: Initial findings suggest irregularities tied to Emily Harrington's projects. Deeper investigation underway. Board has been notified. Amanda allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction before hiding her expression. She knew this was only the beginning, but Emily's world was about to crack wide open. The tension was palpable when Amanda walked into the mid-morning leadership meeting. Emily was already there, seated at the far end of the conference table. Her usual smug confidence had been replaced by a jittery unease. Amanda could see the dark circles under her eyes, the way she fidgeted with her pen, clear signs that Emily was cracking under the pressure. "Let's begin," Emily said curtly, her voice tighter than usual. "We need to focus on the upcoming launch and ensure that everything stays on track." Amanda sat back, letting Emily's anxiety show itself more clearly as the meeting unfolded. Marcus, as always, played his role perfectly. "Speaking of audits," Marcus said casually, flipping through his notes, "there's been a lot of chatter this week about those findings. It's odd. Wasn't this project handled under your oversight, Emily?" The room grew quiet. Amanda kept her gaze steady, watching as Emily's hand stilled mid-tap. Of course it was," Emily said quickly, her voice sharp. "There's nothing wrong. These are just routine checks that happen all the time." Marcus shrugged, though his expression was neutral. It's just that no one else seems to be under scrutiny. Just curious." Amanda didn't say a word, but her silence spoke volumes. She saw the way the other team members glanced at Emily, exchanging subtle looks of doubt. Emily was unraveling before their eyes. Later that day, Amanda walked into her office to find Ryan waiting there, pacing anxiously. She stopped in the doorway, her expression perfectly calm. "Ryan," she said flatly, "what are you doing here?" Ryan turned, his face pale and his voice strained. "I needed to talk to you, Amanda. This audit thing, it's all over the company. People are talking, and it's going to blow back on me." Amanda raised an eyebrow, feigning ignorance. "Why would this affect you? Unless there's something you haven't told me." Ryan froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I just mean that I was around for a lot of the projects Emily worked on. If she goes down, it's going to look bad for me too." Amanda crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "You sound guilty, Ryan. Do you know something about Emily's work that I don't?" "No," Ryan said quickly, his voice too loud. "Of course not." Amanda stepped closer, tilting her head as though studying him. "It's strange, Ryan. You've been so distracted lately. Distant. Almost as if There's something you're hiding. Ryan flinched, unable to meet her eyes. Never mind, Amanda said smoothly, turning back toward her desk. I'm sure you have nothing to worry about. Unless there's a reason you should. Ryan left shortly after, his face pale and his movements agitated. Amanda watched him go, knowing the walls were closing in on him too. Ryan was unraveling just as quickly as Emily, and neither of them suspected that Amanda was pulling the strings. By the end of the week, the whispers in the office had grown louder. Amanda didn't need to do much to keep the momentum going. Emily's paranoia was doing the work for her. Amanda walked into the break room one afternoon to find two employees whispering quietly by the coffee machine. Did you hear the audit team found missing funds on Emily's last project? One of them asked. I heard the board's already asking questions. She must be sweating bullets right now. Amanda poured her coffee, pretending not to listen. As she left the room, she spotted Emily standing near the hallway, her eyes dark and sunken as she overheard the same whispers. Amanda's heart thrummed with satisfaction. You're losing them, she thought, piece by piece. That evening, Amanda sat in her living room, laptop open as she typed out an anonymous message to a well-known journalist. Insider whistleblower confirms ongoing audit at Harrington Enterprises regarding financial mismanagement and data leaks tied to high-ranking executive Emily Harrington. Full evidence available on request. She attached a redacted file containing just enough evidence to raise questions and clicked send. Amanda closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, the faint hum of satisfaction settling in her chest. Emily wouldn't know what hit her. Public scrutiny would soon follow, and her carefully curated image would crack under the spotlight. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the office to chaos. The buzz of conversations was louder than usual, and employees hovered in groups, their voices filled with urgency. Amanda caught snippets as she walked past. Did you see the article this morning? Emily's name is all over it. They're saying she's under investigation. How did this happen? Amanda entered her office and glanced at her laptop, where her news feed was already open. The headline hit her like a victory bell. Rising executive Emily Harrington under fire for alleged financial misconduct and data leaks. The article detailed everything Amanda had fed to the journalist. Enough to cast doubt, enough to turn Emily into a target. Moments later, Emily burst into Amanda's office, her face flushed with anger and panic. Did you see this? She spat, holding up her phone. Someone leaked this to the press. Amanda glanced up, feigning surprise. Leaked? That's serious, Emily. Is it true? Emily glared at her. I don't need your concern, Amanda. Amanda leaned back in her chair, her expression calm. I'm just saying you might want to figure out who your real friends are. Emily stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Amanda let out a slow breath, a victorious smile spreading across her lips. The seeds had been planted, the cracks were spreading, and Emily's world was beginning to fall apart. Emily slammed the door of Amanda's office, her heels echoing sharply down the hallway as she stormed back to her desk. Her mind was spinning. The whispers, the headlines, the audit. It was all unraveling too quickly. Someone was out to destroy her, and she didn't know who. Sitting down at her desk, Emily glanced around the open office space. The same colleagues who had once admired her were now shooting furtive glances her way, their quiet conversations ceasing whenever she walked by. She gripped her phone tightly, her knuckles white as she scrolled through the news article that had spread like wildfire. Emily Harrington, a rising executive, faces serious allegations of financial misconduct and data leaks. Sources confirm that an internal audit is already underway. The article's tone was damning, its accusations reinforced with careful snippets of evidence. It was just enough to shake confidence in her leadership. Emily felt her chest tighten. Who could have done this? She thought of Amanda. The woman had been acting strange lately. Colder, more distant. Emily had brushed it off as work stress, but now she wondered if Amanda knew more than she let on. No, Emily told herself. Amanda couldn't possibly know. But the thought gnawed at her. Across the office, Amanda sat at her desk, calm and collected, flipping through a presentation as though nothing was out of place. Her phone buzzed quietly with a text from Marcus. Marcus, the media's eating this up. The board is pushing for an emergency meeting tomorrow to address the fallout. Emily's on edge. Amanda smiled faintly, her fingers tapping the screen as she replied. Amanda, good. Keep monitoring everything. She set the phone down and leaned back in her chair, watching through the glass walls as Emily frantically worked at her desk, flipping through papers and firing off emails. The desperation in her movements was unmistakable. Emily was grasping at straws. Amanda's plan was working flawlessly. Over the next few hours, Amanda made sure to quietly fan the flames. A passing conversation with the audit team, where she asked if there were any developments in the investigation. A casual mention in the hallway to another executive. It's strange how everything's pointing in one direction, don't you think? A well-timed glance at Emily during a team meeting, just enough to unsettle her without saying a word. Amanda wasn't loud in her movements. She didn't need to be. Emily's paranoia was doing all the work for her. That evening, Amanda returned home to find Ryan waiting in the living room, pacing like a caged animal. The television was on, muted, showing news coverage of the very article Amanda had leaked earlier. You've seen this, haven't you? Ryan said, his voice sharp as he pointed to the screen. This is bad, Amanda. Really bad. Amanda tilted her head, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? Ryan grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. The anchor's voice filled the room. While details remain unconfirmed, anonymous sources suggest that the allegations against Emily Harrington could point to widespread misconduct within the leadership team. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his voice laced with panic. This is spiraling out of control. If the board thinks I had anything to do with Emily's projects, I'm finished. Amanda's expression hardened. Maybe you should have thought about that before getting involved with her. Ryan froze, his face paling. What do you mean by that? Amanda walked closer, holding his gaze. You've been acting strange for weeks, Ryan. Late nights, secrets. Do you think I don't notice when you're lying to me? Ryan opened his mouth to defend himself, but no words came out. Amanda sighed and shook her head. You don't have to admit it. I already know. Ryan sank onto the couch, his face buried in his hands. Amanda turned away, hiding the satisfaction that pulsed through her veins. Ryan's guilt was breaking him apart, and his unraveling would only make Emily's collapse more spectacular. The next morning, Emily walked into the office looking like a ghost of her former self. Her sharp confidence had been replaced by dark circles under her eyes and disheveled hair that she hadn't bothered to smooth down. As she passed through the halls, the whispers felt louder, the stares sharper. They're talking about me, she thought bitterly. She needed to regain control and fast. Lily, she barked at Amanda's assistant as she stormed past her desk. Is Amanda in her office? Yes, but Emily didn't wait. She pushed through the door, slamming it shut behind her. Amanda looked up from her laptop, her expression one of polite curiosity. Emily, she said calmly. To what do I owe the pleasure? You did this, Emily hissed, stepping closer. The article, the audit, all of it. You're trying to ruin me. Amanda blinked, her expression remaining neutral. Emily, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Emily snapped, her voice trembling with rage. This is all too perfect. Someone's sabotaging me, and I know it's you. Amanda leaned back, folding her hands on the desk. I think you're paranoid, Emily. Perhaps you should take a step back and look at the choices you've made. If you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Emily stared at her, breathing heavily. You think you're so clever, don't you? Amanda's lips curved into a small, unreadable smile. I don't need to be clever. The truth has a way of revealing itself. Emily's fists clenched, but she said nothing more. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed out, leaving Amanda alone in her office, her smile growing wider. That afternoon, the official email went out. To Emily Harrington, Amanda Carter, Senior Leadership Team. Subject: Emergency Board Meeting. Allegations Review. Time: 9 a.m. tomorrow. Amanda read the email and closed her laptop, her plan now moving into its final stages. Emily was cornered. Her desperation was visible to everyone, and her fall was only a matter of time. Amanda stood by the window, watching the city below as the sun dipped low on the horizon. Emily thought she could steal Amanda's life, her work, her husband, her success, but she had underestimated her. As the day ended, Amanda whispered to herself, "You took everything from me, Emily. Now I'll take everything from you." The next morning, Amanda arrived at the office earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen, casting a dull orange glow over the city skyline. The tension in the air was palpable, as though the building itself could sense the coming storm. Amanda made her way to the boardroom, the quiet hum of her heels on the polished marble floor steadying her resolve. She entered the room to find it empty, save for the large oak table and the gleaming windows that overlooked the city below. Today was the day Emily's carefully constructed world would collapse, and Amanda would be there to witness every moment of it. Amanda took her seat at the far end of the table. She set her files down neatly, her face calm and composed as she watched the door. One by one, the other board members and executives began to trickle in, their voices hushed and their glances pointed. They were here to discuss the firestorm that had erupted over the last week, the leaked evidence, the mounting audit findings, and Emily Harrington's name tied to it all. The room fell silent when Emily entered. Months before the fallout, Amanda Carter's life was the kind of dream others envied. She was at the peak of her career, leading her company into its most ambitious phase yet. The upcoming product launch promised to redefine their market and solidify her reputation as a formidable leader. At home, Amanda's life was equally polished. Her marriage to Ryan Harrington seemed strong, built on shared ambitions, quiet evenings, and promises of a future that felt secure. Amanda believed she had everything she wanted: a loving husband, a close-knit team at work, and her best friend by her side. Emily Harrington, her confidante, wasn't just Amanda's best friend. She was like a sister. They had built their careers together, side by side, through late nights, setbacks, and successes. Emily had always been there, supportive, trustworthy, and endlessly ambitious. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. But beneath the carefully curated smiles and polished routines, cracks were beginning to form. Amanda just didn't see them yet. It started, as most betrayals do, with blind trust. Amanda and Emily often shared quiet lunches in Amanda's office. The bond between them had grown over the years to something Amanda believed was unshakable. "I don't know how you do it, Amanda," Emily said one afternoon, pushing a salad around her plate. "You're practically running this company and managing a marriage. If I had half your life, I'd never complain." Amanda laughed lightly, sipping her tea. "It's not as glamorous as you think, Em. Ryan and I have been talking about starting a family, but honestly, between the company and the launch, I don't know where I'd find the time." Emily tilted her head, her eyes sharp yet sympathetic. "You'll figure it out. You always do." Amanda smiled, completely missing the flicker of something unreadable in Emily's gaze. Jealousy, perhaps, or something darker. "You'll get there too," Amanda continued. "You're smart, Emily. I wouldn't have made it this far without you." Emily smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I appreciate that, Amanda. Truly." To Amanda, this was just another conversation. To Emily, it was fuel. Around the same time, Amanda began to notice changes in Ryan. Small, almost imperceptible at first. He had always been attentive, checking in on her during long workdays and making sure they carved out time for each other. But lately, his patterns had shifted. Ryan started coming home late more often, brushing off Amanda's questions with vague excuses. "Work's been intense," he would say, loosening his tie as he dropped his bag near the door. "You know how it is. Deadlines piling up, clients needing attention." Amanda believed him. Why wouldn't she? Trust was the cornerstone of their marriage. But one night, as Amanda lay awake waiting for him to come home, the first seed of doubt was planted. She glanced at the clock, 11:45 p.m. Late again, she thought, trying to convince herself it was nothing. When Ryan finally walked through the door, his face looked strained, his movements careful. Amanda sat up in bed. "You're late again." Ryan sighed, clearly annoyed. "I told you, work's been busy. What's the big deal?" Amanda blinked at his tone. "I'm just worried about you." "I don't need you to worry about me, Amanda," Ryan snapped, his voice sharper than she had ever heard. Amanda recoiled slightly, her heart twisting. "'Kay. I'm sorry." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I didn't mean that. I'm just tired. Let's not do this tonight." Amanda nodded quietly, watching as he disappeared into the bathroom. Her instincts whispered that something was wrong, but she ignored them. "He's tired," she told herself. "I'm overthinking it." As Ryan grew more distant, Emily seemed to fill the space he left behind. Amanda relied on her more than ever, trusting her with sensitive projects and leaning on her for support. "I don't know what's going on with Ryan," Amanda confided to Emily one afternoon. "He's been so distant lately. I keep trying to talk to him, but it feels like I'm pushing him away." Emily's eyes softened with feigned concern. "Amanda, you've been working so hard lately. Maybe he feels overshadowed." Amanda frowned, her brow furrowing. "Overshadowed? What do you mean?" Emily shrugged slightly, playing her words carefully. "You're successful, Amanda. Powerful. Not every man can handle that." Amanda sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Ryan isn't like that. He's always been proud of me." "I'm sure he is," Emily replied, her voice soothing. "But maybe he just needs space. You should focus on the launch. Let him figure things out." Amanda nodded, forcing a smile. "You're right. I'm probably overthinking this." Emily smiled back, the satisfaction in her eyes almost imperceptible. Late one evening, Amanda stayed at the office to finalize details for an investor presentation. She called Ryan to let him know she'd be late, but the call went straight to voicemail. "That's strange," she murmured, staring at the phone. On impulse, she opened her laptop and checked their shared calendar. Her heart stopped. There it was, Ryan's calendar entry for dinner meeting, overlapping perfectly with Emily's entry for vendor discussion. Amanda stared at the screen, her mind reeling. Coincidence? Or something more? She shut the laptop, her pulse quickening. "No," she told herself firmly. "There's no way." But as she left the office that night, walking through the quiet parking garage, Amanda couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in her gut, the feeling that something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Amanda tried to convince herself it was all in her head. The overlapping calendar entries, the subtle changes in Ryan's behavior, and Emily's cryptic advice. None of it could mean anything, could it? They were her husband and her best friend. She trusted them. She had to trust them. Yet, the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was starting to grow. A few days later, Amanda was at home, curled up on the couch, trying to relax after another long day at the office. The television droned softly in the background, though Amanda wasn't paying attention. Ryan had left hours ago, claiming he was meeting colleagues for drinks. She checked her phone absent-mindedly. No texts, no missed calls. It wasn't like Ryan to disappear completely for hours. Amanda frowned but brushed the thought aside. Then her phone rang. The sound startled her, and she glanced at the screen. It was a private number. "Hello," she answered cautiously. There was silence for a moment before a muffled voice spoke. "Amanda." Her breath caught. "Yes, who is this?" The caller hesitated, their voice low and hurried. "You don't know me, but you deserve to know the truth about Ryan." Amanda sat up straight, her pulse quickening. "What are you talking about?" "I can't say much, but I've seen him. I've seen Ryan with someone else. You need to open your eyes." The line clicked dead before Amanda could say another word. She sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear as if willing the voice to come back. For a moment, the room felt unbearably still, her thoughts spinning like a hurricane. Who would call me? Who would say that? She wanted to dismiss it as a prank, but the voice. It sounded real. The urgency, the weight of the words. Amanda couldn't shake it. When Ryan came home later that night, Amanda was still awake, sitting in the dim light of their living room. He froze in the doorway, clearly surprised to see her waiting for him. "Hey," he said, forcing a casual tone as he set his bag down. "You're up late." Amanda studied him carefully, the tousled hair, the loosened tie, the faint scent of perfume that didn't belong to her. "I couldn't sleep," she said softly. Ryan walked over, kissing her lightly on the forehead before dropping onto the couch beside her. "Rough day." Something like that. Amanda's voice was even, but her mind raced with the words from the anonymous call. "Where were you tonight?" she asked suddenly, her eyes fixed on his face. Ryan hesitated just for a second. "Told you. Out with colleagues. You can call Ben if you don't believe me." Amanda forced a small smile. "I believe you." Ryan leaned back, relaxing slightly as he scrolled through his phone. Amanda watched him out of the corner of her eye, her heart sinking. She hated the doubt twisting inside her, but something wasn't right. "The truth has a way of showing itself," she thought quietly. "And I'll find it." The next day at the office, Amanda found herself staring at Emily through the glass walls of her office. Emily sat at her desk, effortlessly confident, a slight smile on her face as she typed an email. Amanda's thoughts lingered on the phone call. Could Emily know something? She knocked lightly on Emily's door. "Do you have a minute?" "Of course," Emily said brightly, motioning for Amanda to come in. Amanda sat down across from her, feigning a tired smile. "I don't know what's going on, Emily. Lately, Ryan's been distant, and I keep feeling like there's something I'm missing. It's probably just me, right?" Emily's expression softened, her voice dripping with sympathy. "Amanda, you're under a lot of stress. Between the product launch and everything else, you've been carrying so much on your shoulders. Maybe Ryan just feels neglected." Amanda frowned. "Neglected? I'm doing my best to balance everything." Emily leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "I know you are. But men are complicated. They don't always handle strong, successful women the way we hope they will. Maybe you should give him some space. Let him come back to you." Amanda stared at her, processing the words. Emily's tone was gentle, supportive, yet something about her advice made Amanda uneasy. "I'll think about it," Amanda said finally, rising from the chair. As Amanda left Emily's office, her instincts buzzed louder than ever. Emily's words were subtle, yet they planted something dark, something Amanda couldn't yet define. That evening, Amanda opened her laptop at home to finish a report. She had barely logged in when a calendar notification popped up. Ryan's dinner meeting. Amanda froze. The location was familiar, the downtown bistro. Her heart thudded in her chest as she clicked to expand the details. Her stomach dropped as she read the event note. Meeting with Emily Harrington. Emily Harrington. Amanda's breath caught. Why is Ryan having dinner with Emily? She stared at the screen, her mind racing. Coincidence? Business? Well, Amanda knew better. The late nights, the strange behavior, Emily's advice. It all pointed to something she could no longer ignore. She closed her laptop and stood, pacing the length of the living room. Her thoughts felt like shards of glass, sharp and fragmented. Finally, Amanda whispered to herself, "If they're lying to me, I'll make them regret it." The doubt that had been growing inside her was no longer just suspicion. It was a cold, hard certainty. Amanda didn't have proof yet, but she would get it. And when she did, there would be no forgiveness. Amanda couldn't unsee it. Meeting with the entry in Ryan's calendar sat there like a silent accusation, glaring at her from the screen. Her gut told her everything she needed to know. Emily and Ryan were hiding something. The late nights, the strange tension in her marriage, Emily's calculated advice. All of it led back to this undeniable fact. Amanda wasn't ready to confront them, not yet. If she had learned anything from years of leading teams and handling crises, it was that proof is power. Without it, accusations were useless. So Amanda did what she did best. She planned. The next day, Amanda arrived at work with a clear objective. She needed someone she could trust to help her quietly uncover the truth. Her mind went to Marcus. Loyal, discreet, and good at finding answers. He had already proved himself invaluable during the company's earlier audits. Amanda found him at the coffee station, casually flipping through his phone. "Marcus," she said softly. "Can I borrow you for a minute?" He looked up, curious. "Course. Everything okay?" Amanda led him to her office, closing the door behind them. "I need your help with something. It's personal, and it stays between us." Marcus leaned back in the chair across from her, his brow furrowing. "I'm listening." Amanda hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Something's going on with Ryan and Emily. I can't put my finger on it yet, but I need to know for certain." Marcus's expression turned serious. "You think they're—" Amanda nodded slowly. "Yes, I need proof. Emails, phone logs, calendar entries. Anything that ties them together. Can you help me dig into this?" Marcus exhaled sharply. "Amanda, are you sure you want to do this? If you start looking, you might not like what you find." Amanda's jaw tightened. "Have to know. If I'm wrong, then so be it. But if I'm right—" Marcus nodded, his voice low. "I'll start looking. Discreetly. No one will know." Amanda exhaled in relief. "Thank you, Marcus. I owe you." Marcus smiled faintly. "You don't owe me anything. Just be ready for whatever comes next." While Marcus dug through the digital trails, Amanda took matters into her own hands. She began to notice details she hadn't seen before, details that now seemed glaringly obvious. He had started leaving his phone face down whenever he came home. If Amanda walked into the room, he would shut his screen immediately. His excuses for late nights grew thinner. His stories inconsistent. Dinner with Ben became drinks with a client, which later turned into working on a big project. Amanda began testing him, asking harmless questions about his day. Ryan's answers came out rehearsed, shallow. The guilt in his voice was unmissable. "Who were you with today?" Amanda asked casually one evening. Ryan didn't even look up. "No one important. Just work stuff." "Did you talk to Emily today?" Ryan froze for a split second before replying too quickly, "No." "Why would I talk to her?" Amanda's heart clenched, but her expression remained neutral. "Just curious." Emily had grown more distant at work. The bright, overly cheerful conversations were replaced with clipped responses and a distracted energy. She avoided Amanda's eyes in meetings, almost as if she were guilty. Amanda began testing Emily too, dropping small hints to see her reaction. "You and Ryan must talk a lot these days," Amanda had said over coffee one morning. Emily froze for half a second, just enough for Amanda to notice before replying, "Ryan? No, we don't talk much outside of work." "Why?" Amanda smiled faintly. "Just wondering." The cracks in their facades were growing. Amanda could see it, feel it, and soon she would have enough proof to expose them both. That Saturday, Amanda took matters a step further. Ryan had mentioned he would be at the office for most of the day, but Amanda didn't believe him. She decided to follow him. Sitting in her car across the street from their house, Amanda watched as Ryan stepped out, dressed far too well for a casual day at work. He glanced around the street, checking to see if anyone was watching, before getting into his car and driving away. Amanda tailed him carefully, keeping her distance as they weaved through the city streets. Her heart pounded as she gripped the steering wheel, her breath steady despite the storm building inside her. Finally, Ryan pulled into the parking lot of a small, upscale cafe. Amanda parked across the street, watching him through the glass windows. Her stomach dropped when she saw Emily walk in, dressed impeccably, her confident smile visible even from a distance. She slid into the seat across from Ryan, the two leaning close as they talked. Amanda's world went still. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The sounds of traffic, the buzz of the world around her. It all faded. The two people she trusted most sitting together, sharing quiet conversation like there was nothing wrong. Amanda took a shaky breath, her hands trembling as she reached for her phone. She opened the camera and began snapping photos, her anger rising with every shot. They didn't even notice her. They were too wrapped up in each other, too confident that they would never get caught. Amanda set her phone down, her chest burning with a mixture of betrayal and fury. She had her proof now, proof that they had lied to her, manipulated her, and broken her trust. She whispered to herself, her voice trembling but firm. You think you're untouchable. You think you've won. But you have no idea what's coming for you. That night, Amanda sat alone in the darkened living room, the photos of Ryan and Emily glowing on her phone screen. There was no more room for doubt. The betrayal was real, and now it was war. Amanda pulled out her notebook, flipping to a fresh page. At the top she wrote, Revenge Plan, Phase 1. Her pen moved quickly, her mind sharp with purpose. 1. Gather evidence. Every email, call log, and meeting. They wouldn't escape this. 2. Sabotage Emily's reputation. Slowly and publicly. Amanda would make her unravel piece by piece. 3. Ryan's reckoning. Use his guilt to break him, then leave him with nothing. Amanda closed the notebook and leaned back in her chair, the storm inside her finally quiet. They betrayed me, she thought, and now they'll learn what happens when you cross the wrong woman. Amanda awoke the next morning feeling a sharp clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. The weight of suspicion had been replaced by the burning drive to act. The photos of Ryan and Emily sat on her phone like a loaded weapon, proof that their betrayal wasn't just a figment of her imagination. Amanda didn't crumble under the pain anymore. She channeled it. If they thought they could destroy me and get away with it, they don't know who they're dealing with, she thought coldly as she prepared for the day. Today was about control, taking it back and wielding it like a scalpel. Amanda arrived at the office earlier than usual, the quiet halls almost meditative as she clicked her heels toward her corner office. She paused by Marcus's desk, finding him already at his computer. He looked up, raising an eyebrow. You're here early. Amanda leaned against his desk and slid a small USB drive across the surface. That's everything I captured yesterday. Photos, timestamps, locations. I need you to help me gather more evidence. Email trails, call logs. Anything that proves the connection between Ryan and Emily. Marcus glanced at the drive, then back at Amanda. Are you sure you want to do this? Amanda's gaze hardened. More sure than I've ever been. I need this airtight, Marcus. When the time comes, I want to pull the rug out from under both of them. Marcus nodded, taking the drive and sliding it into his drawer. I'll keep digging. You'll have what you need. Good, Amanda said softly. This is only the beginning. Amanda had learned early in her career that the best plans required patience. She couldn't tip her hand. Not yet. If Emily or Ryan suspected anything, they might change their behavior. For now, Amanda played the perfect wife and boss, keeping up appearances while working quietly behind the scenes. At home, Amanda became more attentive, making dinners, asking Ryan about his day, and pretending nothing was wrong. Ryan seemed relieved, mistaking her calm demeanor for a sign that his lies had gone unnoticed. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching TV, Amanda turned to him casually. Emily's been so busy lately. I hardly see her outside of meetings anymore. Have you talked to her? Ryan stiffened just slightly, the telltale sign Amanda had come to recognize. He masked it quickly. No, not really. She's probably just buried in work like the rest of us. Amanda smiled faintly. Course. I'm sure she's just stressed. Ryan relaxed again, his ignorance soothing his guilt, but Amanda's suspicion deepened. Every word he spoke was another lie, and she was cataloging all of them. At work, Amanda continued observing Emily's every move. The cracks in Emily's facade were growing, though Emily didn't seem to notice it herself. She was confident, recklessly so. Late one afternoon, Amanda walked into the break room and found Emily on her phone, whispering urgently into the receiver. "Not now, Ryan," Emily hissed quietly, her back turned. "I told you I'll handle it later. Stop panicking." Amanda froze, her blood turning to ice. She stepped backward quietly, leaving the room before Emily noticed she had been there. Her heart hammered as she made her way back to her office, replaying the words in her mind. Ryan. They were so careless, so sure Amanda would never suspect them. That carelessness would be their undoing. Amanda sat down at her desk, pulling out her notebook and opening it to the revenge plan section. Under phase 1, she made a new note. Emily is nervous. Use this to push her further. Find ways to make her second-guess herself. The power had shifted. Amanda knew it, and soon so would they. Amanda's next move was subtle but deliberate. She began turning Emily's allies against her. At team meetings, Amanda praised other employees' contributions while subtly questioning Emily's involvement. "That's a great solution, Martin," Amanda said during a project update. "I'm surprised we didn't land on this sooner. Weren't you working on this with Emily?" Martin glanced toward Emily, clearly uncomfortable. She had some ideas, but I mostly handled the implementation." Amanda smiled warmly, nodding in approval. "Well, great work, Martin. It's important we give credit where it's due." Emily's face tightened across the table, though she said nothing. Amanda didn't need her to. Emily's confidence was beginning to fray, her influence weakening bit by bit. Later, Amanda began casually dropping hints to other executives. "I'm a little concerned about Emily lately," she'd say with feigned concern. "She's been so distracted. I hope she's not taking on too much." The whispers spread like wildfire. Amanda never made outright accusations, but she didn't need to. Doubt was a powerful tool, and Amanda wielded it like an expert. 2 weeks into her quiet investigation, Marcus walked into Amanda's office and shut the door behind him. Amanda looked up, instantly sensing his urgency. "What did you find?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp. Marcus dropped a manila folder onto her desk. "This is it. Emails, text transcripts, everything you asked for." Amanda opened the folder, her pulse quickening as she scanned the contents. Emails. Ryan and Emily discussing late-night meetings that had nothing to do with work. Messages. Emily to Ryan. "You need to keep Amanda distracted. She's too smart. If she finds out, we're done." Photos. Screenshots of their overlapping calendar entries, along with time-stamped photos from Marcus's surveillance. Amanda's hands trembled slightly as she closed the folder, but her expression remained cold and composed. She had everything she needed. Proof, undeniable damning proof, that Emily and Ryan had betrayed her. Marcus studied her carefully. "What's next?" Amanda looked up, a slow, determined smile spreading across her face. "Now," she said quietly, "we begin phase 2. That night, Amanda sat alone in the living room, the folder of evidence resting on the coffee table in front of her. She poured herself a glass of wine, staring at the files with a sense of calm satisfaction. Her plan was no longer just an idea. It was a living, breathing strategy that would destroy the people who had betrayed her. Emily and Ryan thought they were untouchable, so smug, so certain Amanda would never see their lies. But Amanda had spent years building her empire. She wasn't weak. She wasn't foolish. And now they would learn what happened when you crossed Amanda Carter. She raised her glass, whispering softly to herself. "To justice." Amanda stood in front of the large windows in her office, the city sprawling before her in the early morning light. She had reviewed the folder Marcus handed her again the night before. Every piece of evidence was solid, each damning detail neatly catalogued. Messages, emails, photos, and calendars, all pointing to Emily and Ryan's betrayal. Now it was time to begin. Amanda had always been a strategist. Her ability to execute precise moves a key part of her success. This wouldn't be a loud, chaotic takedown. It would be deliberate, quiet, calculated. And when Emily and Ryan finally realized what had hit them, it would be far too late to recover. Amanda's first strike came in the form of carefully planted whispers. She knew that reputations, particularly in their industry, were fragile things. Rumors could spread like fire, and once the flames caught, they were impossible to extinguish. At a senior leadership meeting, Amanda made her first move. Emily entered the room looking composed but distracted, a faint shadow of exhaustion under her eyes. Amanda noted it with satisfaction. The cracks were already forming. As the team discussed updates on the product launch, Amanda spoke up calmly. "I just want to remind everyone how critical confidentiality is at this stage of the project," she said, her voice light but firm. "We've all worked too hard to let anything slip. If something were to leak to a competitor," she trailed off, letting the suggestion hang in the air. Around the table, heads nodded, but Amanda's eyes were on Emily. Emily stiffened in her chair. "Are you suggesting something has been compromised?" "Of course not," Amanda replied smoothly, her tone neutral. "I just want us to be vigilant. Mistakes happen when we let our guard down." The subtle jab wasn't lost on anyone. Amanda could see the way others glanced at Emily, their expressions shifting with uncertainty. Emily's own reaction, a flicker of defensiveness, only made the message stronger. That afternoon, Amanda made her second move. With Marcus's help, she packaged a small but potent piece of evidence. A series of suspicious email threads Emily had sent, including one referencing a competitor's interest in confidential product data. Amanda sent it anonymously to one of the internal audit leads, someone she knew took their role very seriously. The subject line read, "Concerned employee, confidential leak evidence." She kept it short and sweet. "I believe someone in leadership has been sharing confidential information externally. I thought you should see this." Amanda hit send, the satisfaction quiet but steady. She didn't need to frame Emily outright. The evidence spoke for itself. All she had to do was light the match and let the system do the rest. That evening, Amanda kept up her act as the loving, unsuspecting wife. She made dinner, her famous pasta dish, something Ryan had always loved. Ryan walked in late. His tie loosened and his face strained. Amanda greeted him with a smile. "Rough day." Ryan nodded, sinking into a chair at the dining table. "Just a lot of pressure at work right now." Amanda brought him a plate and sat across from him, watching as he picked at his food. "Anything specific?" she asked gently. Ryan hesitated, not meeting her eyes. "It's nothing you need to worry about." Amanda's smile didn't falter. "You know, Ryan, sometimes it helps to talk about things. I'm here if you need me." Ryan looked up sharply, as if searching her face for something. Doubt, suspicion, anything. But Amanda was a master at masking her emotions. She gave him nothing but patience and concern. "I appreciate it," he mumbled, pushing his food around the plate. Amanda noted his unease. Ryan's guilt was growing, and with every passing day, it became harder for him to pretend everything was fine. Amanda would use that guilt to break him when the time came. The next morning, Amanda received a text from Marcus. "Marcus, the audit lead called an urgent meeting with Emily this morning. She's panicking." Amanda's lips curved into a smile as she sipped her coffee. Later that day, Amanda spotted Emily in the hallway outside the boardroom. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and hurried. "Who would send this?" Emily hissed. "I don't understand. No one else has access to this information." Amanda paused just far enough away to pretend she wasn't listening. Emily turned suddenly, catching Amanda's gaze. Amanda smiled sweetly. "Everything okay, Emily? You look a little stressed." Emily's expression darkened. "It's fine. Just an issue I'm dealing with." Amanda nodded slowly. "Let me know if I can help. You know I'm always here for you." Emily said nothing, her jaw tight as she stalked off. Amanda watched her leave, her heart thrumming with satisfaction. Emily was scrambling, and it wouldn't take much more for her to make a mistake, one Amanda could capitalize on. By the end of the week, Amanda's carefully planted seeds were beginning to bear fruit. The audit team had escalated their investigation into Emily's activities. Emily was visibly unraveling, snapping at colleagues, missing minor deadlines, and showing up late to meetings. Even Ryan was beginning to notice the tension. One evening, as Amanda sat at her desk reviewing reports, Ryan stood in the doorway, watching her quietly. "You've been so calm lately," he said suddenly. Amanda looked up, tilting her head. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You're just different. Like nothing bothers you." Amanda smiled softly. "Maybe I've just learned not to let things get to me." Ryan nodded, though he looked uneasy, as if sensing the change in her beneath the surface. Amanda's expression remained serene, but inside she thought, "You'll understand soon enough, Ryan. Both of you will." That night, Amanda opened her notebook and reviewed the next stage of her plan. Push Emily further with accidental leaks of information about the audit. Turn Ryan's guilt into paranoia. Let him feel like the walls are closing in. Set the stage for the public downfall, when Emily and Ryan's lies are exposed for everyone to see. Amanda closed the notebook and leaned back in her chair, staring at the city lights outside the window. The game had begun, and Amanda was in control. Every move brought her closer to the moment she would watch them fall, Emily's arrogance shattered, Ryan's lies exposed. And when it happened, Amanda would be there, calm and unshaken, to deliver the final blow. Amanda had always believed revenge wasn't just about striking back. It was about control. By now, Emily's professional life was teetering. Ryan's guilt was beginning to consume him, and the tension Amanda orchestrated was spreading like cracks in a pane of glass. It was time to press harder. The next day, Amanda initiated her next move, a controlled leak that would turn up the pressure on Emily without implicating Amanda herself. At precisely 9 a.m., a carefully timed anonymous tip made its way to the company's internal messaging platform. The message was vague but damning. Concerned employee. Someone in leadership is under audit for unauthorized dealings with external parties. Evidence suggests compromised integrity within one of our core project teams. The words didn't name Emily outright. Amanda didn't need to be that direct. She knew how easily whispers could spread, how quickly suspicions could multiply. By 10 a.m., the entire office was buzzing. Employees hovered in break rooms, huddled over coffee machines, exchanging curious and uneasy glances. "Did you hear?" someone murmured to Amanda near the elevators. "They're investigating the leadership team. I bet it's because of the audit." Amanda raised her eyebrows, feigning surprise. "Really? That's serious. I hope whoever's involved clears things up soon." The employee nodded solemnly, their eyes flickering toward Emily's office. Amanda walked away, hiding her satisfaction. The seed had been planted. By noon, Amanda noticed Emily pacing in her office, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. Through the glass walls, Amanda could see her movements were jerky, frantic. Emily's composure, always her greatest strength, was slipping. Amanda stood by the coffee station, casually flipping through her phone when Emily suddenly burst into the room. "Have you heard the rumors?" Emily demanded, her voice sharp, eyes darting around as if searching for someone listening. Amanda looked up, frowning with concern. "Rumors? About the audit?" Emily hissed. "Someone's spreading lies about the leadership team. I know it's aimed at me." Amanda tilted her head, her expression perfectly calm. "Emily, you're letting this get to you. If you haven't done anything wrong, what's there to worry about?" Emily's face twisted. "That's not the point. Someone's trying to destroy me." Amanda's voice softened with a faint smile. "Maybe you should take a step back, Emily. You've been under a lot of stress lately. People notice when you start to unravel." Emily's mouth opened as if to argue, but she froze. The weight of Amanda's words hit her like a blow. People were noticing. That was Amanda's intention all along. That evening, Amanda sat in the living room, flipping through a book she wasn't reading while Ryan paced back and forth across the room. His movements were restless, like a man carrying a heavy weight he couldn't shake. "Something's happening at the office," Ryan said suddenly, his voice tense. Amanda looked up innocently. "What do you mean?" "Emily told me she's being targeted, something about the audit spiraling out of control. She's losing it, Amanda. And if her name goes public. He trailed off, running his hands through his hair. Amanda watched him carefully, her voice calm. Why are you so worried? You're not involved in any of this, are you? Ryan froze, turning to look at her. Course not. I'm just saying if things blow up, it'll affect everyone. I don't want the company to take a hit. Amanda set the book down and rose to her feet. She approached him slowly, placing a hand on his arm. Ryan, you've been acting so distant lately. I just want to know you're being honest with me. Ryan looked down, avoiding her gaze. I am, he muttered, though the guilt in his voice betrayed him. Amanda squeezed his arm gently. Good. 'Cause I trust you, Ryan. I always have. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, the weight of his guilt pressing down on him like a boulder. The next morning, the office's tension reached a breaking point. Amanda arrived early, her plans already set in motion, as she reviewed Marcus's latest update. Marcus. Audit team is escalating findings. Emily's becoming the focus. She's panicking hard. It won't be long now. Amanda smiled faintly. Perfect. At the weekly leadership meeting, the room buzzed with unease as the senior team settled in. Emily was visibly rattled, her face pale, her movements stiff. The chairman started the meeting, his tone clipped. Before we move forward, I need to address the ongoing audit. While we cannot discuss details, I assure everyone that the board is handling this investigation thoroughly. The room was silent, but Amanda could feel the tension thickening. Emily sat with her arms crossed tightly, her eyes darting nervously across the table. Then it happened. Whoever's doing this is lying, Emily blurted out suddenly, her voice sharp and defensive. I've done nothing wrong. People in this company are jealous. They're trying to ruin me. The room froze. All eyes turned to Emily, stunned by the outburst. The chairman's expression hardened. Emily, he said sternly, I suggest you refrain from such comments until the investigation is complete. Emily's face flushed red, and she sank back into her chair, visibly shaken. Amanda sat quietly, her expression neutral as if observing a particularly unfortunate accident. Inside, she was calculating her next move. By the end of the day, the office was buzzing. Emily's outburst had made waves, confirming suspicions and spreading even more doubt among her peers. Amanda overheard whispers as she passed through the hallways. She's losing it. Did you hear what she said in the meeting? She's guilty for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if she's gone by the end of the month. Amanda returned to her office, shutting the door behind her as she sank into her chair. She pulled out her notebook, flipping to the revenge plan section and crossed off. Phase 2. Plant doubt, isolate Emily, and push her to make a mistake. Her next steps were clear. Emily's professional reputation was crumbling, and Ryan's guilt was spiraling. The two people who thought they could betray Amanda and walk away unscathed were now scrambling to hold onto their fragile lies. Amanda picked up her pen and wrote, Phase 3. Expose the truth. Her smile was cold as she whispered to herself. This is only the beginning. Amanda sat at her desk late into the night, her office bathed in the faint glow of her laptop screen. The city outside was quiet, but Amanda's mind buzzed with energy. Phase 3 of her plan was beginning, and this was the part she had been waiting for, the ultimate reveal, where everything Emily and Ryan had built on lies would come crashing down. The pieces were already in place. Emily's credibility at the company was on life support, and Ryan's guilt was slowly eroding his calm facade. All Amanda needed now was one final, devastating move, a move that no one could ignore. Amanda opened her notebook and flipped to the final section of her revenge plan. At the top she wrote, The truth will set you free, but destroy them. The company's annual gala was just days away. It was an extravagant event, attended by board members, investors, executives, and industry leaders. A night of celebration, elegance, and reputation-making connections. For Amanda, it was also the perfect stage. The gala was Emily's pride and joy. As one of the main organizers, Emily had spent weeks obsessing over every detail. The guest list, the speeches, the presentations. It was her chance to shine. Her opportunity to solidify her place as the company's rising star. Amanda smiled coldly as she thought of it. What better place to expose the truth than on the stage Emily built for herself? The day before the gala, Amanda sent Marcus a message. "Amanda, it's time. Send the files." Marcus replied quickly. "Are you sure? This will hit hard." "Amanda, send everything. Make it anonymous." Marcus didn't question her again. Within an hour, the evidence Amanda had collected, emails, calendar overlaps, text messages and photos, had been packaged into a single damning file. It was sent anonymously to 3 key targets. The board chairman, ensuring the company's leadership would act. The company's internal communications team, guaranteeing the scandal would spread internally like wildfire. A trusted journalist at a leading business publication, making sure the fallout would be public and unavoidable. Amanda sat back in her chair, a sense of finality settling over her. Emily and Ryan had spent months weaving their lies. Tomorrow the truth would tear them apart. The day of the gala arrived, and Amanda dressed meticulously for the occasion. She chose a sleek black gown, elegant, powerful, a reminder of who she was and what she had become. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled to perfection. Amanda looked at herself in the mirror one last time. "They thought they could destroy me," she whispered to her reflection. "They were wrong." She arrived at the gala early, mingling with board members and investors, smiling and laughing as though everything was perfectly normal. She spotted Emily across the room, resplendent in her designer dress, still holding on to the illusion of her success. Emily's smile was bright, but her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Ryan arrived shortly after, dressed in a sharp suit, but Amanda saw the tension in his shoulders, the way he avoided meeting her gaze. Guilty conscience, she thought. But Amanda floated through the room, calm and composed, as if tonight were just another event. But inside, her anticipation burned. The countdown to the reveal had begun. As the evening progressed, the first ripple of chaos began to spread. Amanda caught the sudden shift in energy when a group of board members huddled in hushed conversation, their faces serious. She knew exactly what they were discussing. Moments later, Emily's phone buzzed in her hand. Amanda watched from across the room as Emily's expression froze. Her face paled as she read whatever was on the screen. Emily glanced around the room, her smile faltering, panic flickering behind her eyes. She whispered something to a colleague and hurried toward the hallway, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Amanda followed at a distance, her steps measured, her heartbeat steady. She found Emily in the hallway, pacing frantically as she spoke into her phone. "I don't know where it came from," Emily hissed, her voice shaking. "How could someone get those emails? Ryan, this is bad, this is really bad. They're going to see everything." Amanda smiled faintly, stepping into the light. "Something wrong, Emily." Emily whirled around, her face a mask of panic and rage. "Amanda, what are you doing here?" "I was just checking on you," Amanda said smoothly, tilting her head. "You look unwell." Emily's chest rose and fell rapidly as she stared at Amanda. "This is you, isn't it? You're the one who did this." Amanda's expression remained calm, her voice soft but pointed. "Emily, if there's something you've been hiding, I imagine the truth has a way of catching up with you." Emily took a step forward, her hands trembling. "You think you can ruin me?" Amanda smiled, a slow, cold smile. "No, Emily. You did that yourself." Before Emily could respond, her phone buzzed again. Amanda watched as she answered it, her face crumpling as the voice on the other end delivered what could only be more bad news. Emily stumbled slightly, her confidence crumbling in real time. As the evening speeches began, the fallout struck like lightning. The chairman took the stage, his expression dark as he addressed the audience. "Before we continue with tonight's celebration, we must address a matter that has come to the board's attention," he began. "It involves allegations of serious misconduct, including breaches of confidentiality and improper actions within our leadership team. An investigation is underway. Gasps rippled through the room. Amanda watched as all eyes turned to Emily, whose face had gone deathly pale. Her hands shook as the whispers began, soft at first, then louder. Is it her? What did she do? Wasn't she leading that project? Ryan, seated at the edge of the room, looked equally stunned. Amanda caught his gaze, her expression unyielding. He knew that Amanda had discovered everything. Emily stood abruptly, knocking over her glass of champagne as she fled the room. The sight of her running, humiliated and defeated, was a moment Amanda would savor forever. Amanda didn't linger. She didn't need to. The damage had been done. Emily's reputation had been destroyed in front of her peers, her career in shambles. Ryan, too, had lost his composure, his guilt now impossible to hide. Amanda walked through the quiet hallway, her heels clicking softly. She paused at the exit, taking one last look back at the chaos she had orchestrated. This is what happens, she thought, when you betray the wrong woman. With that, she stepped into the night, her head held high, the echoes of her revenge trailing behind her like a shadow. Amanda sat in her dimly lit office the next morning, the events of the previous night replaying like a silent movie in her mind. Emily's panicked exit, Ryan's stunned expression, the collective whispers of the crowd. It had all unfolded exactly as she had planned. But as she stared out over the city skyline, Amanda didn't feel the rush of satisfaction she had expected. Her plan had worked flawlessly. Emily's reputation was in ruins, her position in the company hanging by a thread. Ryan's guilt had been carved into him like a scar, one he couldn't escape. Yet, beneath the cold triumph that settled over her, Amanda felt empty. The office was unusually quiet that morning, save for the faint murmurs that floated through the halls. News of Emily's downfall had spread like wildfire, fueling rumors and speculation. Amanda passed small clusters of employees gathered in corners, their words hushed but their excitement palpable. She was leaking company secrets. Can you believe it? I heard they're already talking about replacing her. I bet the board forces her to resign. She looked like she was falling apart last night. Amanda kept her expression neutral, offering polite smiles to anyone who greeted her. She could feel the eyes on her, though no one dared say a word. To her team, she was the calm in the storm, the executive who had weathered the chaos without a scratch. That afternoon, Amanda sat at her desk when Ryan's name flashed across her phone. She let it ring once, twice before answering. Hello, Amanda. Ryan's voice was strained, barely above a whisper. We need to talk. Can you meet me for lunch? Amanda paused, carefully considering her next move. Sure, Ryan. I'll meet you at the cafe downtown. The one we used to like. Okay, he muttered before hanging up. Amanda leaned back in her chair, her heart calm. Ryan sounded defeated. His lies had finally caught up to him. At the cafe, Amanda arrived early, taking a seat at a small table by the window. She watched as Ryan walked in a few minutes later, looking more disheveled than she had ever seen him. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled, and the dark circles under his eyes told her he hadn't slept. He sat across from her, running a hand through his hair. Amanda, he stopped, unable to meet her gaze. Amanda's voice was soft, deceptively kind. You look terrible, Ryan. He let out a shaky breath, finally lifting his eyes to hers. Is this you, Amanda? Are you the one who did all of this to Emily? Amanda tilted her head slightly, feigning confusion. What exactly are you asking me, Ryan? Ryan leaned forward, his voice barely audible. The emails, the leak, the rumors. Everything's pointing at her, and I can't help but feel like you're behind it. Amanda's calm smile didn't waver. Why would I do that, Ryan? Emily's been nothing but a good friend to me. And you've always been honest with me, haven't you? Ryan flinched at her words, the guilt eating at him. Amanda, I made a mistake, he whispered, his voice cracking. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Amanda's gaze turned sharp, her smile fading. A mistake. Is that what you call it? Ryan stared at her, his face pale. It didn't mean anything. Swear. Stop, Amanda said coldly, cutting him off. Don't lie to me anymore, Ryan. I know everything. Ryan froze, his mouth opening slightly before he slumped back in his chair. The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. How long? He asked quietly. How long have you known? Amanda's voice was steady. Long enough. Silence stretched between them, the air heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Ryan looked up at her, his expression hollow. So what now? Is this it? Amanda leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. What happens next, Ryan, is up to you. But don't ever forget, you did this to yourself. Ryan didn't respond. He sat there, broken and defeated, as Amanda stood, leaving him alone with his guilt. By the end of the week, Emily had been placed on an indefinite leave of absence by the board. The formal announcement was curt and impersonal, sent out in an email to the entire company. Amanda read the message with a quiet satisfaction. Emily had lost everything, her career, her reputation, and the confidence of everyone she had worked so hard to impress. Rumors continued to swirl. She's finished here. I heard she might face legal trouble for the leaks. Good riddance. Emily's office sat empty now, her belongings packed into boxes. Amanda passed it without a glance, as though it were nothing more than another vacant room. That evening, Amanda sat alone in her living room, a glass of wine in her hand. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the city outside. The revenge she had planned so meticulously was complete. Emily had been destroyed, Ryan was unraveling, and Amanda had emerged victorious. And yet, as she stared at the swirling red liquid in her glass, she couldn't ignore the hollow ache in her chest. She had won, but at what cost? Amanda's mind drifted back to who she had been before all of this. The woman who trusted too easily, who believed in love, friendship, and loyalty. That version of Amanda was gone now, replaced by someone colder, sharper. Did I do the right thing? She wondered, though she already knew the answer. There was no going back. The damage had been done, and she had made her choice. Amanda set the glass down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The victory was hers, but the price had been steep. You betrayed me, she whispered to no one. And I became someone I don't even recognize. The quiet stretched on, and for the first time Amanda allowed herself to grieve, not for Ryan or Emily, but for the woman she used to be. The days after the gala felt strangely quiet to Amanda, as if the storm she had unleashed had sucked all the air out of the world. Emily had vanished, her leave of absence quickly turning into whispers of resignation. Ryan, too, had retreated into himself, his guilt and shame driving a wedge of silence between them at home. Amanda had gotten everything she wanted, or so she thought. Amanda sat in her office one afternoon when her phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Meet me at Greenfield Park. 6 p.m. We need to talk. Amanda frowned, her chest tightening with suspicion. She stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Amanda, who is this? A single reply came. You know who. Amanda's stomach twisted. It was Emily. Amanda arrived at the park just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The air was cool, and the faint sounds of laughter from families in the distance felt out of place. She found Emily sitting on a bench under a large oak tree, dressed in a simple black coat, her usual confidence replaced with something Amanda had never seen before: defeat. Amanda approached carefully, her heels clicking softly on the pathway. Emily, she said coolly. Emily didn't look up. You came. I'm surprised you wanted to see me, Amanda replied, taking a seat at the far end of the bench. The space between them felt like a canyon, filled with unspoken words and lingering tension. Emily turned toward her, her face pale and drawn, as though she hadn't slept in days. I know it was you, Amanda. Amanda raised an eyebrow, her expression calm. Know what? Don't play games with me, Emily snapped, her voice shaking. You did this. You set me up, turned everyone against me, and ruined my life. Amanda held Emily's gaze, unflinching. I didn't set you up, Emily. You destroyed yourself. I just revealed the truth. Emily let out a hollow laugh. The truth. You think you're the hero in all of this? Do you think I'm the only guilty one here? Amanda's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. I made mistakes, Amanda, Emily continued bitterly. But you look at what you've become. You've burned everything down just to win. Amanda's voice was cold, sharp as a blade. You betrayed me, Emily. You took everything I gave you, my trust, my friendship, and you threw it away. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? Emily shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. I didn't want this, Amanda. I didn't want it to end like this. Amanda's expression softened for the briefest of moments. For all of Emily's flaws, for all of her betrayal, there was still a woman sitting in front of her, broken and human. This isn't an ending, Emily, Amanda said quietly. This is justice. Emily turned away, staring at the horizon. If you say so. The two women sat in silence as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows across the park. When Amanda finally stood to leave, she glanced back one last time. Emily remained on the bench, her shoulders slumped, her face turned away. It was the last time Amanda would ever see her. When Amanda returned home later that night, she found Ryan sitting on the couch, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table beside him. The television was on, but he wasn't watching it. He looked up as Amanda entered, his eyes red and hollow. Where were you? Ryan asked, his voice rough. Amanda set her bag down, unbothered by his tone. Out. Ryan shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. You don't even care anymore, do you? Amanda paused, her eyes narrowing. Care about what, Ryan? Ryan stood abruptly, swaying slightly as he pointed at her. About me. About us. About what's left of this marriage. Amanda's lips curled into a faint smile, cold and unforgiving. Us, Ryan. There hasn't been an us for a long time. Not since you chose her. Ryan's face crumpled, the weight of her words hitting him hard. He dropped back onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I messed up, he whispered hoarsely. I messed everything up. Amanda watched him for a moment, her expression unreadable. For so long she had dreamed of seeing Ryan like this, broken, regretful, drowning in the consequences of his betrayal. But now that it was here, it felt hollow. You made your choice, Ryan, Amanda said softly. And now you have to live with it. She turned and walked away, leaving him alone with his guilt. That night, Amanda stood in her bedroom, staring at the framed photo of her and Ryan on their wedding day. Their smiles were bright, full of hope and promise. Felt like a lifetime ago. She picked up the frame and studied it closely, her fingers tracing the glass. Slowly, she set it down and opened the drawer of her nightstand, pulling out the notebook where her plan had taken shape. She flipped through the pages, each step, each calculated move, every word she had written in her pursuit of revenge. The final page was blank, save for a single line she had scribbled months ago. When it's done, will it be enough? Amanda closed the notebook and sat on the edge of the bed, the question lingering in the quiet of the room. She had won. Emily was gone. Ryan was broken. Everything she set out to do had been accomplished. And yet, the victory felt emptier than she had imagined. Amanda whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. What have I become? The next morning, Amanda arrived at work as if nothing had changed. The whispers had died down, and life at the company was returning to normal. Emily's name was no longer spoken. Ryan had taken a leave of absence, disappearing into the shadows. Amanda sat at her desk, staring out the window at the city below. The sun was rising, casting golden light across the skyline, but Amanda felt no warmth. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Marcus, it's over. Emily resigned officially this morning. You did it. Amanda stared at the screen, her heart heavy. Did I? She thought. She set the phone down and looked back at the city, the world she had fought so hard to control. She had won the war, but somewhere along the way, she had lost a piece of herself. The woman who had trusted, loved, and believed in the good of others was gone. In her place was someone stronger, sharper but lonelier. Amanda whispered to herself, the words barely audible. Revenge has a price. And I paid it. The days following Emily's resignation passed in a blur. The office moved on as it always did. Gossip faded, whispers quieted, and new projects demanded everyone's attention. In a world driven by ambition, yesterday's scandal was quickly replaced by tomorrow's opportunity. Amanda sat in her office, staring out at the city skyline. She had spent years building a career defined by precision and strength, and now she had proven something else. No one could betray her and walk away unscathed. But as she sat there, the emptiness she had been ignoring finally began to close in. Amanda had been so focused on revenge that she hadn't thought about what came after. Ryan had taken leave from work indefinitely. His once charming confidence was now a ghost of itself. Amanda hadn't seen him in days, and she hadn't tried to reach out. Their house, once a home filled with laughter and shared dreams, felt foreign to her now. She wandered through the empty halls in the evenings, wine glass in hand, trying not to notice the silence. One night, Amanda stood in their bedroom, staring at the empty side of the bed where Ryan used to sleep. She didn't miss him, at least, that's what she told herself. But she couldn't ignore the hollowness of his absence. She whispered into the dark, "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" The silence answered her. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Amanda stopped by a quiet cafe to grab a coffee. It wasn't her usual spot, but she didn't feel like seeing familiar faces. The rain tapped softly against the window as she waited for her drink, lost in thought. Long time no see. Amanda looked up, startled. Marcus stood by the counter, a faint smile on his face. He looked relaxed, holding his own cup of coffee as if he had been waiting for her. "Marcus," she said, managing a small smile. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," Marcus replied. "You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world." Amanda chuckled softly, though it held no humor. "It's been a long few weeks." Marcus studied her carefully before speaking again. "You got what you wanted, didn't you? Emily's gone. Ryan, well, you know where he stands. So why do you look like you've lost?" Amanda turned toward the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. "Because maybe I did lose," she admitted quietly. "I thought revenge would make me feel whole again, like it would fix everything they broke. But it hasn't." "Not really." Marcus nodded slowly. "Revenge has a funny way of taking more from you than it gives back." Amanda glanced at him, her eyes tired. "So what now?" "You start over," Marcus replied simply. "Let them live with the mess they made, and you find a way to move forward. Stronger. Wiser. But you can't keep living in this." Amanda stared at him for a moment, absorbing his words. For so long, her life had revolved around her plan, around them. But Marcus was right. She couldn't keep giving them that power. That weekend, Amanda returned home to find Ryan's belongings packed neatly in boxes. She had called him earlier that day, her voice steady as she told him it was time to move on. Ryan had been quiet, resigned. "I guess I deserve this," he said. "You do," Amanda replied softly. "But so do I. I deserve peace." When he came to collect his things, Amanda didn't say much. She watched as he carried the boxes out to his car. His movements slow, as if the weight of everything that had happened was finally catching up to him. As Ryan paused at the doorway for one last look, Amanda spoke. "Goodbye, Ryan." He nodded, unable to hold her gaze. "Goodbye, Amanda." The door closed behind him, and Amanda let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. In the weeks that followed, Amanda began to rebuild her life. She spent more time focusing on herself, something she hadn't done in years. She took walks through the city, started reading books she had forgotten she loved, and reconnected with old friends she had pushed aside in her pursuit of revenge. The house felt emptier without Ryan, but it was quieter now, peaceful. At work, Amanda thrived. Her projects moved forward seamlessly, her reputation stronger than ever. The whispers had faded, replaced by admiration and respect. If anyone suspected Amanda's role in Emily's downfall, they didn't say it out loud. One evening, Amanda sat in her office long after everyone else had left. She pulled out the notebook where her plan had first taken shape, flipping through the pages filled with strategies, notes, and evidence. Reaching the last page, she stared at the question she had written months ago. When it's done, will it be enough? Amanda picked up her pen and wrote beneath it, "Oh, but it's over." She closed the notebook and set it aside, the final chapter of her revenge complete. Amanda stood at her window, the city stretching out before her. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the streets, but there was light too soft, golden, and full of possibility. For the first time in months, Amanda allowed herself to hope. The past had been a battlefield, but it didn't have to define her future. She wasn't the same woman she had been before Emily and Ryan's betrayal, but maybe that was okay. She whispered softly to herself, her voice steady and calm. "I'm still here. And I'm still standing." Amanda turned from the window, her steps purposeful as she walked toward the door. The future awaited, and for the first time in a long time, she was ready to embrace it on her terms. The days stretched into weeks, and the quiet that followed Emily and Ryan's departure was unnerving. For so long, Amanda's life had been consumed by plotting, strategizing, and executing her revenge. Without the chaos, there was an unfamiliar void, one that Amanda wasn't sure how to fill. On a crisp Saturday morning, Amanda sat at her kitchen table, staring out the window as steam rose from her untouched cup of coffee. The silence in the house pressed in around her, suffocating in a way she hadn't expected. "This is what you wanted," she told herself. "Is justice, freedom." But why didn't it feel like enough? While cleaning the study that afternoon, Amanda stumbled upon a drawer she hadn't opened in months. Inside were 2 letters, written in handwriting she knew too well, Ryan's. The first letter was dated just days before the gala. Amanda hesitated before unfolding it, her fingers trembling slightly as she read. "Amanda, there's something I need to tell you, but I don't know how. I've made mistakes, ones I can't take back, and I'm afraid of what you'll think of me when you find out. I never wanted to hurt you, but I let myself drift too far. I hope one day you'll understand." Amanda's chest tightened as she read. The words were hollow now, too little, too late. She didn't need his confessions anymore. She already knew the truth, she had made the truth come out. The second letter was shorter, written the night Ryan had finally left. "Amanda, you were right. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't know who I am anymore, and maybe I never did. I hope you find happiness without me, because you deserve more than I ever gave you." Amanda closed the letter, her heart strangely heavy. For so long she had imagined these moments, Ryan broken, regretful, admitting his faults. But as she sat there, holding his words in her hands, it brought her no satisfaction. She whispered into the empty room, "You're right, Ryan. I do deserve better." A week later, Amanda was at the office when she received an email that stopped her cold. The subject line read, "Let's talk." It was from Emily. Amanda stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. She hesitated before clicking it open. "Amanda, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to say this. You won. You destroyed everything I built, my career, my relationships, my reputation. I don't blame you. I did terrible things, and I hurt you in ways I can't undo. But this revenge you sought, did it give you what you wanted? Are you happy now? 'Cause I'm not. And I don't think you are either. I hope one day you find peace. Emily." Amanda sat back in her chair, stunned. Emily's words struck her harder than she cared to admit. Did it give you what you wanted? Amanda had spent months building a flawless plan to destroy Emily, and now that the dust had settled, the question gnawed at her. Was revenge worth it if she was still haunted by the pieces of her old life? That evening, Amanda visited the old art gallery she hadn't been to in years. It had been a place of refuge before life became so complicated. She wandered through the quiet halls, surrounded by paintings filled with color and emotion, stories frozen in time. She paused in front of a canvas depicting a woman alone on a bridge, staring into the distance. The artist had captured something haunting in her expression, a mix of grief and quiet acceptance. Amanda felt a lump rise in her throat. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel everything: the betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak, and the hollowness left behind. Tears stung her eyes as she whispered to the empty gallery, "I don't know if this was worth it." It was the first honest thing she had said in months. The next day, Amanda met Marcus for coffee. He had been her silent confidant throughout the revenge, but now Amanda needed something else: perspective. "Marcus," she said quietly, stirring her drink, "do you think I did the right thing?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You did what you thought you needed to do. And it worked. Emily and Ryan got what they deserved." "That's not what I asked," Amanda replied softly. "Did I do the right thing?" Marcus sighed, his expression thoughtful. "The thing about revenge, Amanda, is that it feels like justice in the moment. But once it's over, you're left with yourself, and the choices you made to get there." Amanda stared into her coffee, his words sinking in. "So what now?" "Now," Marcus said, smiling faintly. "Now you decide who you want to be. Not for them. Not for revenge. For yourself." That night, Amanda opened her notebook, the same one she had used to plan every step of her revenge. She flipped through the pages, reliving the months of anger, bitterness, and calculated destruction. When she reached the last page, she stared at her final note. "Oh, but it's over." Amanda picked up her pen one last time and wrote, "It's time to move forward." She closed the notebook and placed it on a shelf, out of sight. It was a relic of a life she no longer wanted to live. Amanda stood by the window, looking out at the city she had fought so hard to conquer. The future stretched before her, uncertain and open, but for the first time she felt ready to face it. Revenge hadn't given her happiness or peace, but it had given her clarity. She whispered softly to herself, "I'll rebuild. This time for me." And as the sun set on the city, Amanda took her first step toward something new, something better. The days blurred into one another as Amanda adjusted to the quiet. Her mornings were still, too still. No hurried footsteps of Ryan getting ready for work. No calls from Emily asking for advice or invitations to lunch. The silence she had longed for had finally come, and now it pressed against her like a weight. Amanda tried to focus on her work, keeping her days filled with tasks and meetings, but something was missing. She had spent so long plotting every move that now, without a target, she felt unmoored. One afternoon, Amanda sat in her office, staring blankly at her laptop. Her assistant knocked softly on the door, breaking the trance. "Ms. Carter." Amanda looked up quickly. "Yes. Your 2 p.m. meeting has been moved to tomorrow," her assistant said politely. "Would you like me to reschedule anything else?" Amanda hesitated, forcing a small smile. "No, that's fine. Thank you." As the door clicked shut, Amanda let out a sigh. She looked at her notebook, the same one that had once guided her revenge, and pushed it aside. The desk felt empty without the weight of her plan sitting on it. "What now?" she thought. That evening, Amanda wandered through her quiet house. Each room seemed larger than it had before, like it had been hollowed out. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat by the window, staring at the city lights in the distance. For so long, Amanda had believed that revenge would make her feel powerful, whole again. She had imagined this moment, Emily defeated, Ryan broken, and herself triumphant. But she hadn't imagined what came after. The house was cold, even as she wrapped her arms around herself. Amanda's phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the silence. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from Marcus. "Marcus, how are you holding up? Just checking in." Amanda hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard before she typed back. "Amanda, fine. Thanks for asking." The lie felt small, harmless. But even as she sent it, Amanda knew the truth was far more complicated. The next day, Amanda received a call from an old friend, Sophie, someone she hadn't spoken to in months. "Amanda." Sophie's cheerful voice rang through the line. "You've been off the grid. I'm starting to think you fell off the face of the earth." Amanda smiled faintly, though the energy didn't quite reach her voice. "I've been busy." "Busy is an understatement," Sophie teased. "Look, we're all meeting for dinner this Saturday, just like the old days. You're coming, no excuses." Amanda opened her mouth to protest, but Sophie cut her off. "I don't want to hear it. You need this, Amanda. We miss you. You miss you." Amanda sighed, the warmth in Sophie's voice breaking through the wall she'd built around herself. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll be there. But 7 p.m. Don't be late." As Amanda hung up, she stared at her phone for a long moment. For months, she had isolated herself, focused on nothing but her revenge. The idea of reconnecting with people who knew her before felt foreign, uncomfortable. But deep down she knew Sophie was right. Saturday evening arrived faster than Amanda expected. She stood in front of her mirror, smoothing down the simple black dress she had chosen. For the first time in months, she wasn't dressing for strategy, she was dressing for herself. She arrived at the restaurant a little after 7 p.m. Laughter and conversation filled the air, the energy vibrant and alive. Amanda felt a pang of discomfort as she scanned the room, spotting Sophie and a few familiar faces at a table in the corner. "There she is," Sophie called, waving her over. Amanda smiled and approached, her nerves settling slightly as Sophie hugged her tightly. "It's about time you showed up," Sophie teased, pulling Amanda toward a seat. As the evening wore on, Amanda found herself relaxing. For the first time in months, she wasn't calculating her next move or watching for signs of betrayal. Instead, she listened, laughed, and let herself be part of the moment. "So, how have you been?" Sophie asked softly as the others got up to order drinks. "Really?" Amanda hesitated, swirling the glass of water in her hands. "I've been figuring things out." Sophie studied her carefully, her expression thoughtful. "I don't know what happened, Amanda. But whatever it is, don't let it take you away from yourself." Amanda looked up sharply, her throat tightening. Sophie didn't know the details, but her words hit harder than Amanda wanted to admit. "You're stronger than this," Sophie added gently. "I've known you for years. You'll come out the other side, you always do." Amanda nodded, forcing a small smile. "Thanks, sophomore." Later that night, Amanda walked through her front door, the faint hum of the city filtering in behind her. She kicked off her heels and sank onto the couch, feeling lighter than she had in months. For the first time, Amanda allowed herself to think about what came next. The revenge was over. Emily was gone. Ryan was a ghost of his former self. Amanda had won, but she had also lost parts of herself along the way. Sophie's words lingered in her mind. "Don't let it take you away from yourself." Amanda leaned back, closing her eyes. She had spent so much time defining herself through betrayal, anger, and vengeance that she had forgotten who she was without it. But she wasn't broken. She had survived the storm. And now she would rebuild, not for anyone else but for herself. Tomorrow she would start fresh. Amanda whispered softly into the quiet. "It's time to come back to life." And for the first time in months she believed it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains of Amanda's bedroom, casting warmth across the empty space. It was the first time in months she hadn't woken up with a plan already forming in her mind. No revenge, no plotting, no guilt. For once, there was only the day ahead, waiting to be shaped. Amanda sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window as the city began its busy hum. She took a deep breath, the quiet filling her chest with something unfamiliar possibility. That afternoon, Amanda drove to a small, familiar cafe tucked into the corner of an old neighborhood she hadn't visited in years. It was the place she and Ryan used to frequent in the early days of their marriage, back when everything had felt simple and easy. She hadn't stepped foot inside since before it all fell apart. The bell above the door chimed softly as Amanda entered. The smell of coffee and pastries filled the air, mingling with faint laughter from the corner tables. Amanda ordered a cappuccino and sat by the window, the same table she and Ryan used to share. As she sipped her coffee, memories flooded back, afternoons spent talking about dreams and plans, moments when trust and love seemed unshakable. Amanda let herself sit with the feelings instead of pushing them away. For the first time, she didn't see the memories as failures but as pieces of a life that, for a time, had been real. She whispered to herself, "You can let go now. It's time." The realization wasn't sudden, but it was steady. Holding on to the pain, the betrayal, and even the revenge hadn't brought her peace. The only way forward was to release it. Amanda knew she needed to step outside of the shadow she had been living in. That evening, she opened her phone and scrolled through her contacts, hesitating for a moment before sending a message. "Amanda. Sophie, are you free tomorrow? I'd love to grab lunch." Sophie's reply came quickly, "Of course. I'm glad you're coming back to life." Amanda smiled faintly. For so long, she had kept people at a distance, afraid of showing vulnerability. Sophie was right, she had been a ghost of herself for too long. It was time to rejoin the world. Later that week, Amanda received an unexpected message from Ryan. "Ryan, can we talk? I need closure, and I think you do too." Amanda stared at the message for a long time, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. A part of her wanted to ignore it, to shut him out completely, but another part knew that avoiding him wouldn't set her free. She replied, "Meet me at the park tomorrow. 3 p.m. The next afternoon, Amanda arrived at Greenfield Park, the same place where Emily had confronted her weeks ago. It felt fitting that this too would come to an end here. Ryan was already waiting, sitting on a bench with his hands clasped together. He looked smaller somehow, his once confident demeanor replaced by a quiet resignation. Amanda approached calmly and sat down beside him, leaving space between them. "Thanks for coming," Ryan said, his voice soft. Amanda nodded, folding her hands in her lap. "What do you want, Ryan?" Ryan sighed deeply, staring at the ground. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to hear it." Amanda looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I spent months waiting for you to say that. And now that you have, I don't think it changes anything." Ryan flinched but nodded. "I deserve that." Amanda's voice softened, though it held an edge of finality. "You made your choices, Ryan. And I made mine. I won't pretend it didn't hurt. I trusted you. I loved you. But holding on to that pain doesn't serve me anymore." Ryan looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "So, what now?" Amanda stood, smoothing the front of her coat. "Now, I'll let you go. And you do the same." She turned to walk away, feeling lighter with every step. For the first time, she wasn't running from the past, she was leaving it behind. In the weeks that followed, Amanda began rebuilding her life, one small step at a time. She reconnected with friends, rediscovered her love for art galleries, and started attending yoga classes to quiet her mind. At work, her focus sharpened, but not out of a need for control. This time she worked because she enjoyed it, not because she was proving a point. She donated Emily's notebook, the one filled with revenge plans, to a shredder, watching as the pages that had once consumed her turned to dust. "It's over," she whispered as the last pieces disappeared. One evening, Amanda stood on her balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below. The air was cool, the sky clear, and for the first time in months, Amanda felt at peace. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sophie. "Sophie. Proud of you, Amanda. I knew you'd find yourself again. Let's plan that trip we always talked about." Amanda smiled, a real, genuine smile that felt unfamiliar but welcome. "Amanda, let's do it. I'm ready." She set her phone down and leaned against the railing, letting the quiet settle over her. Amanda had walked through fire and survived. She had sought revenge and learned its cost. But now, she was no longer defined by betrayal or anger. She was free. As the stars began to dot the night sky, Amanda whispered softly into the dark. "This is just the beginning." Amanda had spent months trapped in a cycle of betrayal and vengeance, but now the air around her felt different, lighter, unburdened. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't looking backward. Her focus was on the present, and for the first time, she felt ready to shape a future entirely her own. At work, Amanda had a newfound sense of purpose. She no longer poured herself into her projects to distract from her personal pain or prove her worth to others. Instead, she led with a quiet confidence that radiated strength. In her latest boardroom meeting, Amanda presented the company's next major initiative, one that was bold and innovative, a true reflection of her vision. As the team applauded her strategy, Amanda smiled, not because she had something to prove, but because she knew she was finally doing what she loved for the right reasons. Marcus caught up with her after the meeting, a knowing smile on his face. "That was impressive," he said, matching her pace as they walked down the hall. Amanda tilted her head, smirking slightly. "High praise from you." "I mean it," Marcus replied. "You're different now. It's like you've shed something." Amanda paused for a moment before responding. "Maybe I have." Later that week, Amanda received a notification she hadn't expected, an email from Ryan. She debated ignoring it but ultimately clicked it open. "Amanda, I'm leaving the city. I think it's time for me to start over somewhere else. I've caused you enough pain, and I need to figure out who I am without all of this weighing me down. I hope one day you'll be able to forgive me, not for my sake, but for yours. You deserve peace. Goodbye, Amanda." "Ryan." Amanda stared at the words for a long time. Ryan's departure felt like the final chapter of a book she had already closed. It didn't bring joy or sadness, it just was. That evening, Amanda walked into her living room, holding the framed photo of her wedding day one last time. She studied it quietly, then placed it in a box along with a handful of other relics from that life. Photos, cards, memories she no longer needed to carry. Amanda carried the box to the fireplace, where the flames flickered softly. She stood there for a moment before gently placing the photo into the fire. The edges curled and blackened as the flames consumed it, and Amanda watched, feeling no anger, no regret, just release. "Goodbye, Ryan," she whispered. As the ashes settled, Amanda turned away, lighter than she had felt in years. Over the next few weeks, Amanda began to fill her life with things that brought her happiness. She picked up hobbies she had abandoned, painting, hiking, even journaling, though this time, the pages were filled with reflections and dreams rather than revenge plans. She spent weekends with Sophie and other friends, laughing until her sides hurt. She planned that long-overdue trip with Sophie to Italy, something they had promised to do for years but never made time for. One evening, as Amanda stood on a mountaintop during a hiking trip, she looked out at the vast, open landscape stretching before her. The setting sun bathed the world in gold, and Amanda closed her eyes, feeling the wind on her face. For the first time in a long time, she felt free, truly free. Few days later, Amanda met Marcus for coffee. It had become a routine they both enjoyed, a quiet moment to catch up and reflect. "So," Marcus said, stirring his espresso, "you look happy." Amanda smiled softly. "I think I am." He raised an eyebrow. "No regrets?" Amanda considered the question, taking a sip of her coffee. "Revenge gave me clarity, but it didn't give me peace. I had to find that on my own." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "And did you?" Amanda looked at him, her gaze steady. "I'm getting there. I'm learning that peace doesn't come from hurting someone else. It comes from letting go." Marcus smiled, raising his cup in a silent toast. "To moving forward." Amanda clinked her cup against his. "To moving forward." One morning, Amanda stood on her balcony as the sun rose over the city, painting the buildings in shades of pink and gold. The life she had before, the betrayals, the pain, the revenge, felt like another lifetime. It had shaped her, yes, but it no longer defined her. She had let go of the people who hurt her. She had let go of the anger that had consumed her. And in its place, she had found space to grow, to heal, and to become someone stronger, kinder, and freer. Amanda picked up her journal and began to write. I am not the woman I used to be, but that's okay. I survived. I learned. Let go. And now, I'm ready for whatever comes next. She set the pen down and smiled. The future stretched before her, uncertain but filled with promise. Amanda whispered softly, the words carried on the morning breeze. This is my beginning. And for the first time it truly was. Amanda walked into her home that evening, the sound of her heels echoing through the quiet halls. She had spent months trapped in a cycle of betrayal and vengeance, letting the actions of others define her life. Now that it was over, Amanda realized her house, the place that had once been a refuge, felt like a prison. Each corner whispered of memories she didn't want to carry anymore. The fights, the lies, the secrets that had shattered everything. This space isn't mine anymore, Amanda murmured as she stood in the doorway of the living room. It was time to reclaim it. The next morning, Amanda called in a professional organizer and interior designer. I want it all gone, she said firmly, motioning to the furniture and decor that had been a part of her life with Ryan. The designer raised an eyebrow. Everything. Amanda nodded. Everything. I'm starting over. Over the next few days, Amanda watched as the house was stripped bare. The couch where Ryan used to sit, the photos on the mantel, the dining table they had shared. Every object that tied her to the past was removed, leaving behind an empty, quiet space. For the first time, Amanda didn't feel sad. She felt free. She walked through the rooms, envisioning the life she wanted to build. Bold, bright, and unapologetically hers. She chose modern, elegant furniture, soft lighting, and colors that reflected her newfound peace. Warm neutrals and calming blues. When the redesign was finished, Amanda stood in the center of her living room, surrounded by clean lines and light-filled spaces. It's mine now, she whispered, smiling to herself. That weekend, Amanda invited Sophie and a few close friends over for a small gathering. It wasn't anything extravagant, just drinks, laughter, and reconnecting with people who mattered. Sophie walked through the front door and stopped in her tracks. Amanda, this place looks incredible. What did you do to it? Amanda grinned, pouring 2 glasses of wine. I made it mine. As they sat together, sharing stories and memories, Amanda realized how much she had missed this, the simplicity of friendship, of connection without pretense. Sophie nudged her playfully. So, what's next for you, Amanda Carter? Conquering the world. Amanda smirked, taking a sip of her wine. Maybe. Or maybe I'll just enjoy living it for a while. For the first time in a long time, that answer felt like enough. In the days that followed, Amanda began to rediscover herself. She pulled her old easel out of storage and started painting again, something she hadn't done since her early 20s. Each stroke of color felt like a piece of herself coming back to life. She joined a community yoga class, allowing herself to find stillness in the quiet, guided movements. And one afternoon, as Amanda wandered through a local bookstore, she found herself drawn to the self-help section. It wasn't something she would have considered before, but as she flipped through a book titled The Art of Letting Go, the words resonated with her. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing freedom. Amanda bought the book and spent the next week reading it in the evenings, under a warm blanket and a cup of tea. With each chapter, she felt herself healing little by little. One evening, Amanda met Marcus for dinner at a quiet restaurant. He had been her rock through the storm, the silent supporter who had never asked for anything in return. You're smiling more these days, Marcus noted as they shared a bottle of wine. It's good to see. Amanda smiled softly. I think I'm finally figuring it out. Who I am without all of the anger. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And who is that? Amanda tilted her head thoughtfully. Someone who's still learning, but someone who's free. I don't need revenge or validation to feel whole anymore. Marcus smiled, lifting his glass in a toast. To freedom, then. To freedom, Amanda echoed, clinking her glass against his. The next morning, Amanda woke up with a sense of clarity. She knew there was one last thing she needed to do. Not for Ryan, not for Emily, but for herself. Amanda sat at her desk, pulling out a blank sheet of paper. She wrote 2 letters. The first was to Ryan. Ryan, I've spent so long being angry at you, and maybe you deserved it. But I've realized that holding on to that anger only kept me trapped. I forgive you, not because you asked for it but because I don't want to carry this anymore. I hope you find your way. Goodbye. Amanda. The second letter was to Emily. Emily, what you did hurt me in ways I can't describe. I won't pretend it didn't break me. But I won't let it define me anymore. I forgive you because I'm choosing peace for myself. I hope one day you'll learn to forgive yourself too. Goodbye. Amanda. Amanda folded the letters, placed them in envelopes, and addressed them. She didn't expect a reply, and she didn't need one. She was ready to let go. That evening, Amanda sat on her balcony, the stars twinkling above her. The breeze was cool, the city quiet, and Amanda allowed herself to breathe it all in. She wasn't the same woman she had been. She had survived betrayal, sought revenge, and walked through the fire. But now she stood on the other side, stronger, wiser, and free. Amanda whispered softly into the night, her voice steady and clear. This is my story. And it's just beginning. She closed her eyes, a genuine smile spreading across her face. The past no longer held her. The future was hers to shape. The sun was setting as Amanda parked her car outside a familiar location, one she hadn't visited in years. It was a small community center, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, with a vibrant mural painted across the outer wall. The sight of it stirred something deep within her. This was where Amanda had first volunteered in her early career, mentoring young women, sharing skills, and helping others find their confidence. It had been a time of purpose, of hope, long before her life had been tangled in betrayal and vengeance. I need this, she whispered to herself as she stepped out of the car. Inside, the center bustled with quiet energy. A group of teenagers worked on art projects in one room, while in another, a small workshop was underway. Amanda stopped at the front desk, where a kind-faced woman greeted her with a smile. "Hi, I'm Amanda Carter," she said, extending her hand. "I used to volunteer here a few years ago, and I was wondering if you needed extra help." The woman's face lit up. "Amanda, of course I remember you. Your leadership program had such an impact here. We'd love to have you back." Amanda's heart warmed. "I'd love to help. Let me know where I'm needed." The woman led Amanda to a small classroom, where a group of young women sat in a circle, notebooks open. They were mid-discussion, and their eager, thoughtful expressions reminded Amanda of a younger version of herself. "This is Amanda Carter," the woman introduced. "She's here to share her experience and help guide you all." Amanda smiled as the young women turned toward her. "Hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. What are we talking about today?" Over the next few weeks, Amanda threw herself into the mentorship program. She worked with a group on leadership skills, personal growth, and building resilience. She didn't focus on her past, no talk of betrayal or revenge, but rather on the lessons she had learned along the way. One afternoon, as the group discussed overcoming challenges, one young woman raised her hand hesitantly. "How do you move forward when someone you trusted lets you down?" The question hung in the air, and Amanda felt a familiar tug in her chest. She took a deep breath before answering. "It's hard," she admitted softly. "When someone betrays your trust, it feels like they've taken a piece of you. But here's what I've learned. They can only take what you let them keep." The group was silent, listening intently as Amanda continued. "You can let the betrayal define you, or you can take that pain and turn it into something stronger. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the weight of what they did." The young woman nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly. Amanda could see a spark of understanding in her eyes. "That's the key," Amanda said softly. "You move forward because you deserve to live a life that isn't built on someone else's mistakes." That evening, Amanda sat at her kitchen table, pen in hand and a fresh sheet of paper before her. For months, she had written letters to Ryan, to Emily, to the people who had hurt her. But tonight was different. Tonight she was writing to herself. "Dear Amanda, you've been through so much, more than you ever thought you could handle. But look at you now, standing, breathing, healing. For so long you carried the weight of other people's choices, but you don't need to anymore. You are not defined by their betrayal. You are not defined by the pain. You are defined by your strength, your courage, and the way you chose to rebuild. You let go not for them but for yourself. And that's your greatest victory. This is your story. Own it. Live it. And never forget how far you've come. With love and forgiveness, Amanda. She set the pen down and folded the letter carefully, tucking it into the back of her journal. The words were hers, a reminder that she was no longer the woman who had been broken by betrayal. She was the woman who had risen above it. Amanda walked through her home later that evening, trailing her fingers along the smooth walls and smiling at the soft glow of her newly designed space. This house, once filled with ghosts of the past, was now a home again, her home. Amanda caught her reflection in a mirror by the front door and paused. For so long, she had seen a version of herself that was hardened, distant, consumed by anger. But now her eyes were softer, her posture lighter, and her smile real. You did it, she whispered to herself. Amanda had survived the storm. She had walked through betrayal, through revenge, through grief, and she had come out the other side. Not untouched, not unscarred, but stronger. That weekend, Sophie and a few friends came over for dinner, a new tradition Amanda had begun to cherish. The laughter and warmth in her home felt natural, effortless. Sophie raised her glass midway through dinner, a teasing smile on her face. To Amanda, proof that life after betrayal isn't just possible. It can be beautiful. Amanda laughed, clinking her glass against Sophie's. To letting go, she added, smiling. To letting go, the group echoed. Amanda sat back in her chair as the evening carried on, the sound of laughter and conversation filling the air. She didn't think about Ryan or Emily or the past. For the first time, Amanda was exactly where she wanted to be. The city skyline glimmered against the evening sky as Amanda stood on the rooftop of a downtown gallery, an invitation clutched in her hand. Sophie had insisted she attend the networking event, and after weeks of reclaiming her life, Amanda decided to step into something new, something unfamiliar but full of possibility. For so long, Amanda had isolated herself, afraid to trust, afraid to build connections. Tonight felt different. Tonight, she was ready to open a door she had been keeping shut for too long. Amanda wandered through the rooftop crowd, admiring the twinkling lights and the hum of soft jazz from a nearby corner. Her gaze fell on a series of paintings hanging on a temporary display, abstract strokes of color and texture, vibrant yet layered with meaning. Beautiful, aren't they? Amanda turned to see a man standing beside her, holding a glass of wine. He was tall, dressed in a crisp blazer, but his smile was warm, genuine in a way that Amanda hadn't seen in a long time. They are, Amanda replied softly, looking back at the paintings. You can see the chaos, but there's still something hopeful about them. He smiled, studying her with curious interest. It's refreshing to hear someone say that. Most people just nod and say nice. Amanda chuckled lightly. I guess I'm not most people. I've noticed, he said, extending a hand. I'm Daniel. I work with the gallery's artists. Amanda shook his hand firmly. Amanda Carter. It's nice to meet you. Are you an artist or just someone with a good eye? Daniel asked. Neither really, Amanda replied thoughtfully. But I've been trying to rediscover the things I love. Art used to mean something to me. I'm just finding my way back to it. Daniel nodded with a knowing look. Sometimes stepping away lets you see things differently when you return. It's all about perspective. Amanda met his gaze, surprised by how much his words resonated. Perspective, she repeated softly. I think you're right. As the evening wore on, Amanda found herself drawn into conversations she hadn't expected. Conversations about art, travel, and life. There was no need to explain who she had been or what she had gone through. Here, among strangers who knew nothing of her past, Amanda felt free to simply be herself. At one point, Daniel approached her again, a fresh glass of wine in hand. So, Amanda, he said, What brings you here tonight? Amanda smiled faintly. A friend dragged me here. Well, remind your friend to drag you out more often, Daniel teased lightly. You fit in here. Amanda raised an eyebrow. I don't know about that. I'm not much of a social butterfly. Maybe not, Daniel replied. But you're someone who notices the little things. That's rare. Amanda studied him for a moment, surprised by his words. It had been so long since someone had seen her, really seen her, for something other than her work, her reputation, or her past. Maybe I'll start coming to events like this more often, she admitted, her voice softer. I hope you do, Daniel said with a genuine smile. I'd like to see more of your perspective. Amanda felt the faintest flutter of nerves, something she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what this was, but for the first time, she didn't feel the need to control it. When Amanda returned home that evening, the house no longer felt like a cavernous void. It felt warm, welcoming, as though it reflected the quiet change that was happening inside her. She poured herself a cup of tea and sat on the couch, her heels kicked off, her notebook open on the coffee table. She picked up her pen and began to write. Tonight, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Connection. For so long I've been afraid to trust, to let people in. But maybe it's time. Maybe not everyone is out to hurt me. Maybe some people are just kind. Whatever happens, I want to keep showing up. I want to keep stepping into the world. I've spent too long standing in the shadows, afraid of what might go wrong. But what if something goes right? Amanda set the pen down, her thoughts settling as she took a sip of tea. For the first time in a long time, she felt open to the unknown, curious about where life might lead her next. In the weeks that followed, Amanda kept showing up. She attended gallery openings, explored new hobbies, and joined Sophie on spontaneous outings that pulled her out of her comfort zone. Slowly but surely, Amanda began to trust again, not just in others but in herself. She trusted her instincts, her boundaries, and her ability to walk away from anything that didn't serve her. One afternoon, she received a message from Daniel. Daniel, there's a new art exhibit opening this Friday. Think you'd love it. Care to join me? Amanda stared at the message, feeling the smallest tug of hesitation before shaking it off. She smiled, typing back. Amanda, I'd love to. You there. It wasn't about Daniel or romance or what came next. It was about Amanda choosing to open her life again, to say yes to new people, new experiences, and new possibilities. For so long, Amanda's world had been defined by betrayal and revenge. Now it was defined by hope. That evening, Amanda stood on her balcony, the city lights glittering below like scattered stars. She took a deep breath, letting the cool breeze wash over her. Her journey hadn't been easy, and the scars of the past would always be there. But they didn't control her anymore. They didn't define her. Amanda whispered softly to the night, a promise to herself. I'm not afraid anymore. And for the first time she truly believed it. Amanda had once lived for grand gestures and meticulously planned moves, whether in revenge, relationships, or her career. But now, life had become about the smaller moments, the ones she had always overlooked. Amanda woke up early on a Saturday morning, sunlight spilling into her bedroom through the soft linen curtains. The house was quiet, but instead of feeling empty, it felt peaceful. She had spent weeks transforming the space, and now it reflected her inner calm, bright, uncluttered, and full of light. For years, her mornings had been rushed, defined by deadlines and distractions. Today she took her time. She brewed a fresh pot of coffee, the rich aroma filling her kitchen as she leaned against the counter. Picking up a notebook she had started recently, one reserved for gratitude, Amanda opened it to a blank page and began to write. Today, I'm grateful for sunlight, fresh coffee, and the chance to start again. The words were simple, but they filled her with an unexpected sense of contentment. Amanda carried her coffee to the balcony, settling into the chair she had placed there weeks ago. The world outside bustled as the city came to life, but Amanda sat quietly, savoring the stillness. She didn't need grand victories or perfect plans anymore. This being present was enough. Later that day, Amanda slipped on her sneakers and decided to take a walk through Greenfield Park. The last time she had come here, she had been standing face to face with Emily in a bitter confrontation. Today was different. Today she was here for herself. The park was alive with families, joggers, and the occasional street musician strumming a guitar. Amanda took her time, breathing in the cool air, watching children chase after ducks near the pond. She passed a couple sitting on a blanket, their laughter soft and sweet, and it stirred something in her. Not jealousy but hope. Pausing at a bench beneath a large oak tree, Amanda sat down and let the world move around her. She thought of everything she had endured, the betrayal, the pain, the anger, and how far she had come. It was strange, she realized, how much peace could be found in simply letting go. As Amanda rose to leave the park, she spotted a familiar face in the distance. Daniel. His blazer replaced with a casual sweater, a sketchpad tucked under his arm, was walking toward the small pond. He noticed her almost instantly and smiled warmly, changing direction to meet her. "Amanda," he said, his voice easy and kind. "What are the odds?" Amanda laughed softly, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Apparently higher than I thought." "Enjoying the park?" he asked. "I am," Amanda replied honestly. "It's nice to be somewhere that feels peaceful." Daniel nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Peace is underrated. Most people chase after something big and forget how important the little things are." Amanda smiled faintly. "I used to be one of those people. And now I'm trying to slow down and just appreciate where I am," she said. "For the first time, I'm not rushing to the next thing." Daniel studied her for a moment before holding up his sketchpad. "I was going to sit and draw for a while. Would you like to join me?" Amanda hesitated, an old instinct telling her to decline, to keep her distance. But something about Daniel, his openness, his lack of pretense, made her say, "Sure, I'd like that." They walked together toward a shady spot by the pond. Amanda sat down on the grass as Daniel opened his sketchpad, flipping to a clean page. "You don't mind the silence, do you?" Daniel asked. Amanda shook her head, smiling softly. "Oh, silence is good." And so they sat, the afternoon sun warming their faces as Daniel sketched quietly, and Amanda simply existed in the moment, feeling no need to fill the quiet with words. That evening, Amanda returned home, her heart full in a way she hadn't experienced in years. She picked up her old journal and flipped to the back, where she had started writing reflections for herself. Tonight, her words came effortlessly. "Today, I sat in a park and watched the world move around me. I didn't feel rushed. I didn't feel out of place. I just felt present. I think I'm learning how to live again, not for anyone else, not for some grand purpose, but for myself. Joy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a walk, a shared moment, a bit of sunlight on your face. I think I've been chasing the wrong things for too long. Maybe the life I want has been right here, waiting for me to slow down and notice it." Amanda set the journal aside, her gaze drifting to the framed artwork on her living room wall, a painting she had created herself. It was abstract, vibrant, full of both chaos and light. For a long time, she had been afraid to step into the unknown, to let herself trust, to let herself feel. But now, Amanda realized that life wasn't about certainty. It was about showing up, one small moment at a time. Before heading to bed, Amanda stood on her balcony once more, the city alive with glittering lights below her. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, the hum of the streets a comforting backdrop. For so long, she had been defined by what had been done to her. Now she was defining herself, one choice, one moment, one step at a time. Amanda whispered softly into the night, the words filled with quiet resolve. "I'm still here. And I'm happy." And for the first time she truly was. Amanda woke up on a breezy morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The last few months had been transformative. She'd shed the anger and pain that had once defined her and replaced it with peace, acceptance, and quiet joy. But Amanda wasn't done yet. There was something else waiting for her. New doors, new beginnings, and the courage to step into a future that was completely hers. Amanda sat at her desk in her bright, minimalist office, sifting through her emails when one caught her eye. Subject: Speaking Opportunity, Women in Leadership Summit. She opened it, curiosity piqued. Dear Amanda, we've been following your work and the positive changes you've brought to your field. Your leadership and story are inspiring, and we'd be honored if you would speak at our annual Women in Leadership Summit next month. The theme this year is Resilience and Reinvention, and we believe your voice would make a meaningful impact. Please let us know if you're interested. Warm regards, Karen Mitchell, Director of Programming. Amanda leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. For a moment, doubt crept in. She hadn't spoken publicly in years, not since before everything had fallen apart. Sharing her story felt risky, vulnerable. Do I want to reopen those wounds? She wondered. But then another voice inside her spoke up. It's not about reopening wounds. It's about showing how you healed. Amanda smiled faintly, clicking reply and typing. Dear Karen, I would be honored to join the summit. Thank you for this opportunity. Best regards, Amanda Carter. She hit send, her pulse quickening. It was time to tell her story. Not for closure but to show others that it was possible to rebuild, to let go, and to thrive. Over the following weeks, Amanda worked on her speech with careful intention. She didn't want it to be about bitterness or revenge. That wasn't who she was anymore. Instead, her focus was on resilience, growth, and the lessons she had learned. One evening, as she rehearsed in front of a mirror, she paused, staring at her reflection. You're not that broken woman anymore, she whispered to herself. You're stronger now. Tell them that. The day of the summit arrived, and Amanda stood backstage, waiting for her cue. The auditorium buzzed with energy. Hundreds of attendees gathered to hear women from all walks of life share their journeys. Next up, we have Amanda Carter, the moderator announced. Amanda is an executive leader, an artist, and someone who embodies resilience and reinvention. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage. The applause swelled as Amanda stepped into the spotlight, her heels clicking softly against the wooden floor. She took a steadying breath as she reached the podium, looking out at the expectant faces before her. Good afternoon, everyone, she began, her voice steady. A year ago, I wouldn't have imagined myself standing here, talking to you about resilience. I thought I knew what strength looked like. I thought it meant never breaking. But I was wrong. The room was silent as Amanda continued. Life has a way of throwing storms at us. Betrayal, loss, failure. For me, the storm came when people I trusted most let me down. I was hurt, angry, and I let that anger consume me. I thought revenge would make me whole again, but all it did was leave me emptier than before. Amanda paused, letting the weight of her words settle. But here's what I learned. Healing doesn't come from hurting others. Comes from choosing yourself. From letting go of the pain you didn't ask for and giving yourself permission to start over. Heads in the audience nodded, some faces reflecting quiet recognition. Amanda's voice grew stronger. Resilience isn't about pretending the storm didn't happen. It's about walking through it, piece by piece, and rebuilding yourself on the other side. I chose to let go. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the room as Amanda continued. If there's one thing I want you to take away today, it's this. You are not defined by what others did to you. You are defined by what you choose to do next. So choose yourself. Choose healing. Choose freedom. The audience erupted in applause as Amanda finished, her heart swelling with pride. Not from validation, but from knowing that her story might help someone else find their strength. After the event, Amanda stood outside the venue, a cup of tea warming her hands as she watched the sunset paint the sky. She felt lighter, freer, as though speaking her truth had unlocked a new door inside her. Sophie's voice interrupted her thoughts. You were incredible, she said, pulling Amanda into a hug. You don't even realize how many people you just inspired. Amanda smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. Hope so. That's all I wanted. You got what you wanted and more, Sophie replied. You proved that it's possible to start over, and not just survive but thrive. Amanda turned back to the sunset, the colors burning brighter than ever. For so long, she had been lost in the shadows of her past. But now she was free to step into the light. "I think I'm finally where I'm supposed to be," Amanda whispered softly. And for the first time she truly believed it. Amanda stood in her art studio, a place she had recently reclaimed for herself. A space where creativity thrived, where thoughts flowed freely, and where she could simply be. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, catching dust motes as they floated lazily in the air. A half-finished painting sat on the easel before her, abstract, vibrant, and alive. Amanda dipped her brush into a bold streak of red, carefully adding strokes to the canvas. Painting had always been a passion of hers, but for years she had abandoned it. Now, as the brush glided effortlessly, she felt herself rediscovering a part of her soul that had been buried beneath the weight of anger and pain. This painting was different. Unlike the others she had created since reclaiming her art, this one told a story, the story of her transformation. The chaos of swirling brushstrokes hinted at the storm she had walked through, while the soft blues and golds represented the calm she had finally found. Amanda paused, tilting her head as she studied the canvas. "This is my story," she thought. A story of survival, revenge, healing, and ultimately freedom. It wasn't perfect, neither was she, but it was real. A faint knock at the door pulled Amanda from her thoughts. She turned to find Sophie standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I thought I'd find you here," Sophie said with a smile, stepping inside. Amanda grinned as she set down her brush. "You know me too well." Sophie handed her a cup and took a seat on a nearby stool, eyeing the painting. "This is incredible." "So?" Amanda took a sip of her coffee, nodding thoughtfully. "Feels like me. For the first time in a long time." "You've come a long way," Sophie said softly, her voice filled with admiration. "Do you ever think about everything that's happened? Emily, Ryan. All of it?" Amanda's expression grew reflective as she stared at the canvas. "I used to think about it all the time. I let it control me, define me even. But not anymore." Sophie leaned forward. "And now?" Amanda turned toward her, her voice calm and resolute. "Now I see it for what it was. Painful, yes, but it shaped me into who I am. I don't regret what I did to survive it, but I've learned that holding on to anger only hurts you. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, it means freeing yourself." Sophie smiled, raising her cup in a toast. "To letting go." Amanda clinked her cup against Sophie's. "To freedom." Later that week, Amanda stood at Greenfield Park, where so many pivotal moments had unfolded. This time she was alone. The autumn leaves crunched beneath her boots as she walked toward the familiar oak tree that had quietly witnessed so much of her pain. She carried a small box with her, one filled with relics of the past. A photo of her and Ryan, the letters he had written, and a few items that symbolized the life she had left behind. Amanda knelt beneath the tree, opening the box and carefully removing each item. One by one, she laid them on the ground, speaking softly into the quiet. "I forgive you, Ryan," she said, holding his letter before placing it down. "And I forgive myself, too." She picked up a photo of Emily, one that had been taken back when they were still friends. "You made mistakes, Emily. And so did I. But I'm done carrying this." Amanda took a deep breath, allowing herself one final moment of reflection. Then she gathered the items and buried them gently beneath the oak tree, pressing the dirt down with her hands. As she stood, a weight lifted from her chest, as though the ground itself had absorbed the last remnants of her pain. "This chapter is closed," she whispered. Amanda turned and walked away, the wind carrying her words into the open air. Weeks later, Amanda found herself standing at the gallery where Daniel had invited her. It was the opening of a new exhibit, and this time Amanda was part of it. Her painting, the one that told her story, was displayed prominently near the center of the room. She watched as people stopped to admire it, murmuring about its energy and emotion. Daniel appeared beside her, his hands tucked into his pockets. "You did it," he said with a smile. Amanda nodded, her heart swelling with quiet pride. "I did. Your work is powerful, Daniel continued. It tells a story without saying a word. That's the point, isn't it? Amanda replied softly. We all have stories. This one's mine. As she looked around the room, at the art, the people, the life happening all around her, Amanda felt something she hadn't felt in years. Joy. Not fleeting happiness or satisfaction, but a deep, unshakable joy that came from knowing she had survived and rebuilt herself from the ground up. She had chosen healing over bitterness, forgiveness over anger, and freedom over resentment. And that choice had led her here. That night, Amanda sat on her balcony, the city lights stretching out before her like stars. The cool air carried the hum of the world below, but her mind was quiet, at peace. She picked up her journal one last time and wrote, I've learned that life doesn't stop for our pain. The world keeps turning and we have to decide how we'll keep moving with it. I chose to let go, to forgive, and to start again. Betrayal may have broken me, but it didn't destroy me. I rebuilt myself, stronger, wiser, and free. This is not the end. It's a beginning. And I'm ready for whatever comes next. Amanda set the pen down and closed the journal, her gaze lifting toward the horizon. The future stretched before her, wide and full of possibility. For the first time, Amanda felt like she was truly living, not for revenge, not for anyone else, but for herself. As the wind whispered through the night, Amanda spoke softly, her voice carrying a quiet, unshakable strength. I'm free. And she was.